Hello, and welcome to what was going to be a plugged in review stream, but then I got wind of something that really should be covered.
So basically, this stream was supposed to be let's fuck with the censorship people. Then they beat us to the punch.
Yeah.
The censorship people said, "Here, hold my communion wine,"
Yeah.
because of course they're Christian. Because okay, maybe
So,
not, of course, but in America, if they're censorship, they're Christian. Yeah, I'm going to start by just setting fire to your entire comments section. You're very welcome, Ring.
Oh, I'm practically invisible to trolls. You know that.
Yeah, like I'm beginning to get offended because I'm not, but the trolls are not following me to your channel. I'm beginning to get offended. Sorry, I'm in one of those moods today, folks. Live with it.
Yeah.
We are scheduled for expert jokes to begin in about how long do you, what, 44 seconds? 44 billion? Yeah, that works.
Yeah. So, anyways, welcome to anyone who is lurking in the chat and or watching in the future. But also, quick guess as to where I was made aware of this news story.
Okay. There are two options. Either you were still in the range of the dying squawks of the dead bird. I'm ahead of schedule, folks. Or your mother shared it.
Nope.
Go on.
Blue Sky.
Yes, but what were people talking about it to do with on Blue Sky? Because were they on the it side or were they on the other side? Because I feel like Blue Sky at the moment is still very leftist and would be trapping it.
Yeah. It was check out this bullshit, basically.
Yeah, which like I want Blue Sky to stay as it is. Right now, it's fandom friendly, it's kinky, it's trans friendly, and it's very leftist. Please stay that way. If you've got an invite code, please don't give them to any Tom, Dick, or Harry.
Yeah.
Like, you know, let's keep it human.
Yeah.
Yeah. Look, I don't know about you, right? But I've spent several years not having a quote unquote bubble. Like I went out of my way when I first joined Twitter to follow people I didn't agree with, didn't like.
Yeah.
You know, to make sure I was aware of what the other side was saying. Do you know what? I'm too old for that shit now. If you're not on my side, you're in my fucking way, so move.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. So you've told me a bit about this story. I don't know anything about this story because while I am on Blue Sky, I'm also finding that not being surgically attached to the dead bird has done wonders for my mental health.
Yeah.
And I've gone from like posting every hour to posting maybe twice a day. And this is good.
Yeah.
I miss shit. And I'm sure once Blue Sky picks up with like people on there, I will probably end up posting every hour again. But for now, I'm enjoying the slow times, right?
Yeah.
So I'm not aware of this. All I know is what you've told me, which, folks, is a librarian got banned for refusing to censor books. Let's talk about it. To which I said, bitch, I'm going to need more alcohol than you warned me I would.
Yeah.
Or at least if I didn't say it out loud.
Yeah.
I should have. Because I'm sober right now. Yes, I know it doesn't seem like it. I am sober right now. But I've got 3 bottles of gin down there and I'm feeling like playing a drinking game because they've got to be cleared before I leave the country in a couple of months.
Or at least the open ones do.
Oh yeah, no, the open ones. Yeah, I've got 2 open ones of cheap gin down there, and they're the kind of gin that taste fucking awful, But after the first 2 mouthfuls, you don't care because they kill all your taste buds. So I might do it. Hang on, let's see what this one is. Let's see. Peel Pack. Bought from Iceland for about 12 quid, I think. That was a low point in my life that we don't talk about. Maybe I'll just put it to my head if I need to.
But
yeah.
I like even now I have to remember that when you're talking about Iceland, you're not talking about the country, you're talking about a chain of British shops.
But for the Americans, Iceland is if Aldi was everything, was all freezers.
Yeah.
Or if
basically like, if you had a store that was pretty much just the freezer section at Walmart.
Like, no, if you shop at Walmart, you are too rich to be caught dead at Iceland. Work that out amongst yourselves, right?
I mean, in terms of America, it's Target that's the posher of the options. Walmart's the bottom of the barrel.
That's what I mean. I'm fully aware of that fact. Like, Walmart is Asda. If you shop at Asda, you wouldn't be caught dead at Iceland. I shop at Iceland because the food's good, it's cheap, and I can stick it in the freezer, so I don't care. But, you know, some people are posh, and I ain't got time for that. But yeah, which means I drink 12-pound bottles of gin. You can tell I didn't like it because there's more than half left. Maybe I can use it as like cleaning fluid. No, it's not even strong enough to use as cleaning fluid. Anyway. This story.
Yes.
A librarian fired for not doing... Like, I have friends who are librarians. I have friends who studied to be a librarian. The university I went to as an undergraduate was famous for its librarians master's course. Like, I was going to do it. And it's one of those things, like, people travel... Literally, I knew people on the master's course to be a librarian at my university who'd traveled from like fucking India and China. Like, it's one of the best. Like, if you went to that university and did a master's on that course, you will walk into a job anywhere in the world as a librarian for any university. Yeah. Because you've got the skills and you've proven it, right? Yeah. If you've got a reasonable grade. I have a lot of respect for librarians. I am fully aware that they do more than just sit there and check books in and out. Your librarian is the person who curates your library. Like, there's no big board deciding who's the books. Like, the librarian makes the decisions. Yeah. Your librarian is, like, conceptually thinking you know more about how to run a library than a librarian. It's a bit like thinking you know more about how to do surgery than Hannibal Lecter. You know?
With less disastrous consequences for you.
To be fair, Hannibal Lecter as a surgeon, the character, was an excellent surgeon with an excellent record. It's his extracurriculars that tanked his survival rates.
No, what I'm saying is, you know, a conservative, nutcase who thinks they know media literacy better than a librarian is probably better. You know, is probably going to fare better than someone who thinks they're a better surgeon than Hannibal Lecter, especially if Hannibal Lecter is.
I disagree.
Really?
Yes, because when I've spoken to surgeons and they said they're going to do something, because I've had a couple of surgeries in my life, folks, minor ones, nothing major. I have been perfectly comfortable saying the words, I don't care who fucking does it. I don't care if you're a trained chimp, just fucking do it. I would not want a trained chimp behind the counter at my local library.
Yeah, but let me put it this way. I would not want to be someone, some trained chimp who thinks they're a better surgeon than Hannibal Lecter if Hannibal Lecter catches wind of that.
Yeah, but Hannibal Lecter doesn't eat chimp. He employs an
Yes.
ethical butcher. He eats pigs, not chimp. But also, like, surgeons' knife slips, they kill one person. Librarians' integrity slips, they destroy an entire generation.
Yeah.
So, you know, what I'm saying is, folks, respect your librarians.
Yeah.
They know what the fuck they're doing.
Yeah. So, anyways, let's get into this article. I will say we are using the Huffington Post article because it is the only national source
that's picked it up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Have a look.
I think like CNN did a little blurb on the meeting, but yeah, this is the only like article on it.
What town did it happen in?
Gillette, Wyoming.
Gillette, like the razor blade company.
Yeah. I think we either drove through that or drove past that when we.
And we drove through and past a lot of things in America, dear.
Actually, that might have been the town that we spent the night in when we stopped in Wyoming to sleep.
I remember nothing about Wyoming, so I'm gonna say if you say so.
Yeah, well,
like the only thing I remember about was Wyoming the really flat one, or was Wyoming the one that was really just grey?
Wyoming was like middle of the night because we hit it after we went to see Mount Rushmore.
Wyoming was the one that had the fucking storm that had me terrified in the car that we were going to be hit by lightning. And I fell asleep and woke up when I felt the car swerving. And you said, I don't know if I'm too tired or if a rabbit just ran out in front of me. To which I said, you're pulling off at the next junction and we're finding a fucking motel.
Yeah.
That was Wyoming.
Yeah, that was Wyoming.
Yes.
And so it might have been Gillette where we got in, where we went into a hotel and then like had Starbucks when like in the morning when we were getting ready to leave.
Yeah. Okay. Right. I found it on Ground News. Now, I'm not being paid to shill this. This is an app that I found from, if you watch Legal Eagle, if you watch a lot of YouTubers, they've been advertising through them and have recently. So I downloaded it to try it, and I paid for the subscription because it is well worth having if you are in any way politically switched on and interested. Because what it does, it aggregates all the news stories on a particular topic. So, Women's World Cup or this story. And what it does, it takes all of the sources that it can find on the internet, aggregates them, tells you immediately which side of the political spectrum that news sources generally lean towards. So, if it's a story that's always saying what Fox News says, it's going to be right-wing. If it's a story that's always saying what, like, MSNBC is saying, it's going to be centre-left. And it tells you that straight up so you know. What it also then does is, if you are the kind of person like me who prefers to read left news, because that is generally more accurate and suits my worldview better for what I'm looking for in news, it will occasionally ping you and say, excuse me, do you want to read the right-wing version of this? Make sure you read the right-wing version of this so you know you're not being lied to. So it's really good. It doesn't say excuse me because it's not British, but it's really good. It's got this story, one story about this from the Cowboy State Daily, which it has marked as right-wing news, with the headline, Fired Wyoming Library Director Tells CNN No Pornography in Gillette Library. Which is a hell of a headline.
Yeah.
And they've put pornography in scare quotes because, of course, they fucking have.
Yeah.
Again, right-wing news, and you see things like that. Like I see,
And
especially when you see like British news and stuff. So Brown News, you can get the free version. Do it. Like if you are in any way politically switched on and want to understand what's going on in the world, I recommend this app. I really do.
Hashtag
Hand on
not
heart, not being
sponsored.
paid, not sponsored. This is the most useful news aggregate thing I have and have had probably since I started using Twitter and following the trending. Like it's really useful, and it tells you straight, and you can begin to see how the news sites, after you've used it for a couple of days, you'll begin to be able to predict how the news sites are going to like spin a certain story.
Yeah.
And that's really useful because then you can understand your own biases and you can get to the truth under it. So yeah, not sponsored, not being paid. Just if you are interested, do use it. I have it. Yeah.
And yeah, when I did a quick Google search, it was literally just like little papers in Wyoming and then the HuffPost.
Yeah. Apparently CNN interviewed someone about it.
Yeah.
And you can tell by the way this right-wing paper that Ground News is presenting to me that they are right-wing.
Yes.
Which what I might do, I might find this article so we can compare the two articles if you want. Because it's an interesting.
But anyways, we'll begin with the HuffPost article and maybe go to the other one. So in late July, the board of the Campbell County Public Library System in Wyoming voted 4-1 to terminate Terry Leslie as longtime director. And here's where here's where we start getting on the slope. And this is a roller coaster of a story once we really get into the, because how news articles are. They get the broad stuff up at the beginning, and then once you go deeper in the article, you get more of the meat and potatoes. And the meat and potatoes here are a ride. But so for 2 years, the library board, with the assistance of conservative community members, had been trying to get Leslie to remove books they alleged were sexually inappropriate for minors. But Leslie refused for fear of getting sued and her strong belief that a diverse collection of books is integral to a successful library, and I have no idea what accent my voice slipped into. But any comments?
Let's keep reading because there's another story that I've just found on that other website I want to talk about the way this news gets spun by right-wing media.
Yeah.
But let's carry on.
I believe the community is harmed by not having access to a wide variety of information, Leslie said. Leslie said, I can talk, I swear. Leslie is adamant that LGBTQ-themed books belong in the library, even if certain parents don't want their children reading them. She is also worried about being sued for violating the First Amendment, which prohibits government-sanctioned censorship. They've manufactured this crisis, she told the HuffPost, speaking about the board in the aftermath of her dismissal. Their claims have no substance and lack any critical support.
Right. Let's just stop there. Okay.
Yeah.
If you are a parent and you don't want your child reading certain books, here's a tip. Be a fucking parent and stop them reading those books instead of expecting other people to do it for you. You piss them out, you fucking deal with it.
Yeah.
Also, like, just in general, why don't you want your kids reading LGBT-themed books? Why? It's like, anytime you want to ban something, I don't care what it is, I'm going to keep asking why. Because, look, You don't want your kids reading about two girls kissing. Why? Because it might give them ideas. Why? Because... And eventually you will get to the crux of the matter, which is, I'm a fucking idiot who thinks books can change the minds of human beings and change the sexuality of human beings, and I'm a bigot, so I don't want that to happen to my precious little diddums.
It's how you get the demons.
Yeah. Why is it that whenever religious people talk about demons, what they're really talking about is human beings who think for themselves? Like, you have demons if you don't obey the priest. Yeah, but the priest wants to, like, take me into the confessional box and put his hand down my trousers. So, you know, who's got the demon here, folks?
Yeah, well, actually, 95% of the, like, I'd say about 95% of the time, and of course, you know, 99% of statistics are made up on the spot, but I'd say about 95% of the time, a demonic panic from an evangelical is basically just cultural supremacy being masked in religion.
Yes, but it's also, I need, you know, Daddy the pastor needs a new private jet, folks, so dig deep.
Yeah, but also I just the Giga Chat energy of this quote. They've manufactured this crisis. Their claims have no substance and lack any credible support.
Like, she is so fucking done at this point.
Yeah.
She is so... I absolute hat tip to this woman. She is so fucking awesome. Yeah. Because imagine, like, you've got to be pretty fucking done to say that to a national newspaper with your whole ass chest.
Yeah.
Like, you've got to be... like, hat tip. Let's go on, anyway.
So, the Campbell County Library Board has not responded to HuffPost's request for comment. Leslie had been an employee of the library system for 27 years, including 11 years as the director. So
like, she's not some newbie.
Yeah.
She knows her shit, folks.
According to members of the community in the town of 30,000, she was widely beloved. At the special meeting in which she was dismissed, hundreds of people showed up in support of her. So how did she get removed from such a critical position?
Right. Can I... That paragraph rings alarm bells for me.
Yeah.
That paragraph is very, like, hundreds of people showed up. Do me a favor, click the link. I just want to see where they're getting those figures from, because that's, you know, millions of people came to my speech.
Yeah.
I want numbers. I want evidence here for that.
Okay.
Not that I don't think that HuffPost is genuine or that it's a lie, but this is one of those things that, again, talking about ground
Okay, news. So it links to an article by Wyoming Public Radio.
Okay.
Let's see. And it just said hundreds of residents gathered for a special meeting. That's right. The only mention of it.
Okay. I need you to understand the difference.
Yeah.
Wyoming Public Radio, who presumably were there, right, as local reporters, hundreds of residents gathered for the meeting. Do you see how that went to HuffPost and became hundreds of people showed up to support her?
Yeah.
It's subtle. And I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with this article, but that is a very deliberate positioning of the facts. It's a spin, right? And the reason I point this out is because left-wing and right-wing news does it.
Yeah.
And it's all bound up in censorship, right? If you silence one side, you're gonna get spin from the other. And your job as a reader, right? There's an old joke about a journalist in school who his teacher said on the first day in a lecture at university, they said, look, you're going to be a journalist. If you have two people arguing, and one says it's raining and the other says it's not. Your job is not to give both of them a platform. Your job's to look out the fucking window and check the weather.
Yeah.
Your job is to look out the window and check the weather. Look at where these things come from. Because you see, I don't know the non-PC
Oh,
terms
okay. So here's the full sentence. Hundreds of residents gathered for a special meeting at the library on July 28th, many of whom were supportive of Leslie, though a few dozen spoke in support of the board's actions to dismiss her.
Right. A few dozen spoke, but you don't know how many were stood there on either side.
Yeah.
Because it's questionable, you can spin it either way.
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily a bad thing that they do that, but you should be aware of it when you're reading the news. Hence why I'm pushing this of read all sides of a news story if you're interested. Everyone does propaganda. The left are generally better at propaganda than the right, because right-wing propaganda is fucking stupid.
So there's the quote.
Yeah. So a few dozen spoke in support of the board's actions.
Yeah.
Hundreds gathered. How many of those hundreds didn't speak, but were on the side of the board? Because the way HuffPost has taken that and translated it has said a few dozen people spoke for the board, but the entire crowd, every single person, I was inside their mind and I know exactly why they were there, and they were there to support her.
Yeah.
It doesn't quite work, does it?
Yeah.
And again, this idea that she's a critical position, that she's widely beloved in the community. This is more like an obituary than a non-biased. And look, I am not arguing in support of censorship at all, but
I mean,
what I'm saying is, everyone has a point, even the Huffington Post. Everyone has an angle, right?
Though, working in a public-facing, public serving position, for 27 years, including 11 years in a higher place,
she's a pillar of the community.
Yeah, she's
she's a pillar of the community. She's like the headmaster of the primary school or something. It's she's well known, probably broadly respected. Doesn't necessarily mean she's beloved, but probably broadly respected, and has seen at least 3 generations of kids through using that library, so they're all going to know her and remember her.
Yeah.
Right. I still remember the librarian from the library when I was a kid. But, again, it's everyone's got an angle. HuffPost's angle is clearly because it's HuffPost and it is left-leaning. Censorship is bad. Listen to your librarian, which, as I said right at the beginning, is exactly where I sit. But that doesn't mean I can't see when I'm being played either.
Yep.
And it's important to be able to see when you're being played. Especially when it's something you actually want to, like, you are less likely to notice you are being played if you agree with what's being said to you.
Yeah.
So, pay attention. Anyway, going on.
So, the challenges to Leslie's oversight.
Sorry, can I just? On an article about censorship in a library, in which their problem is sexually explicit or sexually, like,
are you talking about the advertisement?
Yes. So, where they've got a problem with the LGBT and sex and adult content, there's a fucking advert for sanitary towels. Just like perfect. A+, no notes.
So the challenges to Leslie's oversight of the library followed a strategic track. Conservative activists, often supported by Republican legislatures, have launched an all-out war against LGBTQ plus people. So
we can read that. You don't need to read it out.
Yeah.
This entire paragraph, don't get me wrong, I agree with it.
Yeah.
But it's not factual. It's not factual. It's pure opinion, and frankly, it's bordering on scaremongering. Or it would have been 3 years ago when this was first starting out, and we didn't think it'd get this far.
Yeah.
right? Like this
Like-
creates the us versus them dichotomy. They are evil. They are a conspiracy. They are coming for your children. They are coming for your rights. That's what this is creating. This is they're talking about the right wing creating a culture war. This is cashing in on that culture war and feeding into it. But I agree with it. Like, I'm not saying there's anything like, but it's not a factual statement. It's multiple statements of opinion strung together to frighten the life out of you if you're reading it. That's what it's for.
Yeah.
The HuffPost knows its audience. Its audience are LGBT, trans, left-wingers who don't want censorship and see the word Republican and think demons.
Yeah.
And they're leaning hard into that.
Yeah.
Again, just
this would be all-out scaremongering, but gestures at
It's
Florida.
Yeah, like the thing is, right, this is it's designed to scare you, is this paragraph. It's designed to freak you the fuck out, and it's reasonably well cited. But there's like, if I said to you, this is the latest in a long line of conservative actions in various states under which parents with right-wing leanings have decided that they wish to propose that they should have more control over the access to literature that their children have in school. I'm saying the exact same thing that sentence is saying, but you're not scared to fucking death when I say it, are you?
Yeah.
Like again,
and also, both the Democrats and the GOP use scaremongering politics. The only difference is the GOP has to invent their threat.
Don't worry, I have an article from a right-wing source that I'm going to ask you to share the screen on when we finish this one. And if you think this, like, the reason I'm pointing it out on this one is because I'm also going to point certain things out on the other one, because the other one is a fucking doozy.
Yeah.
And I think it's important because, again, censorship is not just about banning stories, right? Yeah. It's about actually censorship goes beyond that, because if you don't teach people how to read critically and engage with things critically, you don't have to censor them. Like, if you can read that paragraph and think there's nothing wrong with it and it's absolutely right and you are not being played in any way and it's just plain statements of facts, you need to go find your old high school English teacher and your old history teachers and have a word, because they fucked up.
Though I will also have to say that this does follow, the pattern of calls for censorship that I've seen while doing research on book bannings for Lit Month over the course of my channel.
Yeah, I mean, look,
they start with school curricula, then school libraries, and then they try and go for the community libraries.
Yeah, and look, if your government suddenly starts demanding everyone carry ID cards, and then some people start wearing badges for their identity, then people start being made to move house so they all live in the same place, you are perfectly within your rights to say, okay, in 3 years' time, they're going to take all those people and murder them. Because that just because it follows the same track, like, you are not scaremongering if you can see where that ends. But, right, you also have to understand the Huffington Post, as with all news sites, they exist to do one thing and one thing only: make money. They are clickbait. They are designed to frighten you. They want to keep you reading. If, let's say, for this paragraph, you read it and you're frightened. So you right-click 3 links and they've got 3 more clicks from you that they can sell to advertisers. You read those articles, you'll probably click on other links. Before you know it, you've been on the site for 10 hours.
Yeah.
That's a lot of attention that advertisers will pay for. So, look, follow the money. Don't accept anything as given. And if something's a statement of opinion, Like, there is truth in what this is saying, right? This is not
Yeah.
lies. It's well cited. They've got evidence of it, and we've all seen it happen. But right, so some right winger somewhere will look at this article and go, "I want that article taken down," and they'll put in complaints about it and shit, right? Because of this.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that the article, like, and to an extent, they've got a point, because the article is not saying, "Here's the facts." The article is saying, "Here's the facts, and here's your let's get frightened by this cherry on top."
Yeah.
And the journalist who wrote it, the person who wrote it, this is probably their God's honest opinion, or whatever religion they are. Undoubtedly, whoever it is, I don't know who the journalist is, but follow the money and appreciate every single. Like, I'm sat here telling you to watch for bias. I'm biased in the way I'm wording it.
Yeah,
I am absolutely biased, and I've always, I'm a bleeding heart liberal, anti-war lefty. This is who I am as a person, right? I don't make, but I told you that up front. The news sites don't, and you need to know those things up front so you know how to receive what they're telling you. So yeah, I have a bee in my bonnet about this, because if people were taught to read critically, there would be no need for calls for censorship, and there would be a lot more backlash against them, and it's all bound up in a wibbly wobbly timey-wimey thing in my head. So yeah.
So, in the spring of 2021, community members came to the library to complain about alleged sexual content in books in the teen and kids section, targeting titles like How Do You Make a Baby by Anna Fisk and Doing It by Hannah Witten.
Okay. How do you make a baby? I need to point something out. From the school library journal, listed on Amazon, this book is listed as targeted at kindergarten through to grade 4. Yeah. Somehow I doubt it's pornographic. It's how does the baby get in mummy's belly, and why does that? Why does what happens if mummy can't get a baby in her, because it discusses IVF? It's like it's on that level. It's not on the level of your dad sticks it in her and gives her one. Because that's no one wants to read that. I don't care how old you are. You don't want to think about your parents. Yeah. Like, that's not what that's for as a book. This other book, Doing It, Hannah Witten. Yeah, let me just have a look.
It's a sex ed book for ages 14 to 18.
Hannah Witten has a YouTube channel. I've seen her. She's brilliant. She's fucking awesome. Right? I'm so glad she's got a book. She's also got a podcast, I'm just seeing. I've seen some of her stuff on YouTube, like shorts and things. She's brilliant. She talks frankly, openly, and honestly about sex toys, and just everything. Like, again, not sponsored, not shilling, but fucking, like, Hannah Witten is like, do you know what she is? She's the older sister or older brother, if you would prefer to speak to someone who's AMAB about that, who gives you the facts that your parents tried to hide from you. That's who she is. Like, she's awesome. And the fact, now I'm really pissed. Where's that gin gone? Now I'm really pissed off, folks.
No, I'm really pissed. I need that 12-pound gin from Iceland.
Fucking hell, that's awful.
That June, a teen volunteer wrote a Pride Month blog post for the library celebrating LGBTQ authors, and some people living in Gillette pushed back, including a local official who said it was harmful to the community. And when the library hired Michaela Oz, a children's magician who happened to be trans, for an event a month later, all hell broke loose.
Okay. Couple of things. Again, just pointing out that this website has a bias, right? This website is biased, because all hell broke loose is not a statement of anything factual that happened.
Yeah.
Unless demons literally came out of a sudden hole in the ground caused by an earthquake and the devil appeared playing a fiddle, all hell did not actually break loose.
Yeah.
Like, so
The magician was simply a well-renowned magician who was hired for a summer program, said a longtime library staffer who requested to remain anonymous due to fear of reprisal. Her gender identity was irrelevant, but that was the match that lit the tinderbox.
Okay. I just want to check something. Do we know the book doing it? Again, it's aimed at teenagers. It is aimed at 14 to 16-year-olds. Godless Granny's right. I don't think it was in an elementary school. Like, this person who's been fired is the district librarian.
Yeah.
This was not a school library that we're talking about.
Yeah, we're covering the removal of the head of the town library.
So this is in a local public library, which I think is exactly where that book should be.
Yeah.
It's absolutely where that book should be.
You know, and presumably it would have been in the teen section. Yeah.
I agree. If that book doing it, like, from what I know of that YouTuber, I wouldn't want her talking to someone under about 10 or 11 as well. Or if she was, I would want to be very much in control of what she was saying, because she would be talking about, you know, she's very open and very frank about sex and things, and therefore her book, I would presume, is the same way out. But that doesn't necessarily mean, like her book should be in a public library. It shouldn't be in a library that 5 and 6-year-olds go to on a rainy day.
Yeah.
Like that, you know, on a rainy lunchtime. It shouldn't be in like a kindergarten classroom. It's common sense, folks. But yeah, if this is a public library we're talking about.
Yes.
Yeah. And Granny, I'm talking really fast. I'm in a hyper mood today. I'm not having a dig. I just wanted to address that point. It's a brilliant point, well made, and I agree.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want it in an elementary school. I would want it in a secondary school.
And it is fair to reiterate that we are talking about a public library for the people who, you know, came in a bit late.
Yeah. So again, it's, if I'm 18 years old and I go to a public library because I'm looking for information about sex and my parents are Puritans, that would be a book I would hope I would stumble across, or the librarian would point me to. It's not a book I want an 8-year-old reading. And, you know, there is a difference. So, yeah, absolutely agree. And if my tone doesn't match that, I agree. I apologize. But, yeah, I absolutely agree.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Again, they hire the magician. She's trans. They didn't even pay any mind to the fact that she was trans. And then, as HuffPost puts it, all hell broke loose. Violent threats online, over the phone, gender identity all over social media, threats prompted cancellation, because that's the goal of this, right? Like censorship, that's censorship. The library also
posted on its Facebook page that Oz's performance wouldn't go as planned because of safety concerns for the staff and attendees.
Yeah. So again, this is what they do, right?
And this is back in 2021. The article's building a pattern of behavior.
Yeah, it's highlighting a pattern of behavior.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to take this way out of gender for a moment. Why do you think right wingers picket abortion clinics? It's to frighten people from going there because they're scared of what might happen if they will. Therefore, they don't use it. Therefore, eventually it loses funding and shuts down. It's the same tactics. It's, you know, if you want something to stop, you picket it, you cause problems, you make people feel unsafe to use it, and it goes away. It's not government censorship, but it is a form of censorship and oppression. And that's very much a tactic that we see, you know, and look, we all do it. We all do it. I've been on protest marches. Like, do I go on protest marches, or do I sign petitions against whatever I oppose because I want them to carry on and be allowed to do what they want? No, I want them fucking shut down. I want it done. Right wingers do the same. And if they genuinely believe what they believe, they'll probably have very similar motivations, right? They think that that's what's best. And again, this is that thing of left-wingers and right-wingers. We use a lot of the same tactics, but we demonize the other side for doing it. And the reason I'm pointing out that we use these same tactics on the left as they do on the right, like the right wingers are probably talking about, oh, trans person wants to, and it'll be some insinuation of trans person wants to pull a rabbit out of their hat for your child, or something will be the scaremongering headline that will have gone along with this. Yeah.
Yeah.
Where I grew up, like I grew up in an area where it was known that they put sex offenders living there when they came out of prison. And the rumor that always seemed to go, the rumor that went round about one guy was he invited 2 boys into his flat to look at his snake. It's the insinuations, right? There's nothing necessarily wrong with that.
Yeah.
But it's wrong when you find out that he's just done 5 years for child sexual assault material.
Yeah.
Like, context. And it's the insinuations under it. I don't know if that guy was that, but that was the rumor that went round. Yeah. And that's what this is telling. This is doing the same thing from a left-wing point of view. It's saying, look, they want their parental rights to stop children reading these books. Look at all these other things they've done that makes this an evil thing they're doing. They're building a case. And it's not necessarily a bad thing that they build a case, but they are building a case, and this is a persuasive article. It's not an informational article. This article is designed to persuade you that you are on the right side and they are on the wrong side and they are evil and you must oppose them. I don't think it's wrong, but that's because I oppose censorship.
Yeah.
Someone else might. And again, I don't think articles like this shouldn't exist because I'm anti-censorship, but that comes with the caveat of people should know how to read them and understand what they're being presented with. But yeah.
From there it spiraled to familiar refrain. The library supposedly was providing inappropriate materials to children, and the librarians were the ones to blame.
Again, this is like playbook. Go back up a second. Go back up. This is exactly what I'm talking about, right? There's nothing factual in that sentence. It's a very broad, it's a generalization that loses all meaning. And this emotive, like conservative culture warriors, supposedly, they don't need air quotes because it's implied, right? Yeah. For inappropriate materials, it's that vague terms. The fact that it spiraled, it went down the drain, it spiraled. Do you understand how you can read that sentence and get angry and be like, fuck these people? But then if I say to you, and they did the same thing they always do, these conservatives, they decided that the library was providing text that they didn't think was appropriate for their own children. And they decided that the way to deal with this was to speak to the librarian and ask the librarian to remove it. It's the same sentence. I'm saying the same thing. But again, you're not suddenly G'd up ready for a fight, are you? And I'm sure the right wingers will put it as, the dirty lefties, decided that they wanted to show our children pornography and we're the reasonable ones for saying no.
Yeah.
And where they're calling us evil because we don't want our children reading pornography. Well, don't give your children pornography then.
Yeah. So, in October 2021, supporters and critics of the library gathered at a board meeting to voice their concerns.
Okay, right, look. This next paragraph.
Yeah.
Right. This has clearly been cherry-picked from probably dozens of comments. And again, HuffPost got a bias. HuffPost is going to pick the things that you as the reader are going to go, what? Say that again? But it makes a point, and it's painting all of the look.
And like having grown up, super fundy, Like I can 100% agree that those quotes probably came up.
Yeah, they probably came up, but there were probably one or two in dozens, is what I'm getting at, right? And again, they've picked the most extreme because they're trying to paint this entire cabal of people as us versus them. Yeah. They are extremists. They are weirdos. You're normal. You know that these people are weirdos. But, you know, I'm left wing, and there are people who I look at on my side of the political spectrum, and I'm like, can you calm down a bit? Can you calm the fuck down? It's like this article insinuates, or seems to insinuate, that anyone who opposes and wanted this librarian fired must be a right-wing nut who thinks books are witchcraft and libraries are indoctrinating your children into communism or something.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's America, and Americans don't know what communism means, but they know it's scary.
Yeah. We're gonna put a pin in that because that's gonna come up.
Put a pin in that. Yeah, but like most normal, reasonable human beings are gonna look at that and go, "The fuck." Yeah. You put a woman's career, the fuck, right? And that's normal and that's reasonable. But I guarantee you, if you read the other ones, it's going to be things like, I don't want my 12-year-old seeing these books. Or I think my 13-year-old might need to have, I think maybe you should put this book somewhere in the library that my 13-year-old can't go without getting through a barrier. Yeah. Which are reasonable statements, right?
Yeah.
Like at my public library when I was a kid, there was an adult section and a kids section, and there was a glass door in between. And anyhow, the librarian saw you underage going into the adult section, it better be because you are looking for a CD, because that's where the music was as well. Yeah. Otherwise, she wanted to know, and the librarian would check what you were reading. Like that's normal, right? And I'm talking about when I was 7 or 8 years old at the public library, and my dad was, off looking at Jimi Hendrix frigging records, and my mum was sat in the cafe drinking tea and talking to someone, like, so of course those are, but what they've done by giving you those extreme examples is said, no, the people who just want, maybe my 10-year-old shouldn't have access to this, maybe put it on a higher shelf, or maybe this should be a book that my 15-year-old has to have permission to take out.
Though
those are reasonable requests, but they're not. But they put in with the witchcraft and indoctrination and communism.
That being said, it speaking in quote unquote support of the people making the complaints. When pundits make a point to make a scare about something, they do tend to imply that it's for a younger audience than it actually is for. Yeah, because remember last year when we covered the school board meeting that banned Mouse. They were talking about how it was like being assigned to third graders, and no, it was actually for the middle school.
Look, can I share my screen for 2 seconds and just show you something?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. This is the front page of Hannah Witton's podcast. Right? Because her book is the one. Right.
Yeah.
This is not a podcast for children.
Yeah.
You can tell that very clearly. Like, it's got a fucking wand on there, and like it's not for children. Even the way she's dressed, it's not for children.
Yeah.
So them insinuating that the book she's written that's about the same thing is going to be for children is disingenuous as fuck.
Yeah.
Right? Curious, non-judgmental, nerdy, and hopefully funny at appropriate times. Yeah?
Yeah.
About her. Right, I'm not being funny. None of this. What part of this website makes you think it's for children? You look at the about page. Like, none of this.
Yeah. And so though we do have a bit of a more factual paragraph coming up.
Yeah. But the reason that I'm pointing this out is, look,
Yeah.
if you are looking at a book and on the cover of that book is an artist rendering of a penis emoji and a Hitachi massage wand, don't ask me how I know what brand it is, but I just do, okay? I'm a grown-ass adult, leave me alone. That's not for children, and you should know that.
Yeah.
There's nothing there that should be appealing to children. So just, yeah, okay. I did just be in my bonnet about that because you mentioned it. But yeah.
So, according to the Gillette News record, community members challenged 29 books in 2021 and 2022, including Genderqueer, which was actually the most challenged book, the most challenged / banned book last year.
Yeah.
By Maya Kobabe. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. I'm probably not. Lawn Boy by Jonathan Edison.
Yeah.
And This Book is Gay by Juno Dawson, all of which have been frequently targeted by right-wingers around the country. No books ended up being removed from the library entirely, but 2, including Kobabe's memoir, were moved to the adult section. I think that one's targeted at teens. The other 26 stayed in their respective sections. Evanston's novel was already in the adult section.
Yeah. Look, Genderqueer is not an explicit book. I think there's a little bit of like, it's, I wouldn't consider it explicit, but then I probably shouldn't be allowed near children, let's be honest. I will tell children all the gory details about their body, how it works, and if there's an adult who is trying to touch them there, they should break their fingers and scream for their parents. Because that's what you should be teaching children. Like, give them the words. But yeah, none of these books are anything I would have a problem with a 12-year-old and up reading.
Yeah.
That's not to say that I wouldn't want to have a discussion with the 12-year-old about the book.
Yeah.
But, you know, if you pushed out a baby and it became a 12-year-old, you should be talking to them about the books they're reading. So.
Oh, okay. So this sparked a story time with Ring.
Mm-hmm. Go on.
So, I think it was my junior, possibly my senior year of high school, because I did have to repeat a semester of English 3. And I'm pretty sure it was English 3 where we did Sherman Alexie. But anyways, we were doing a Sherman Alexie book. I think I think the one that was actually in the curriculum was like it had a one-word title, but it had a permission slip that parents had to give consent, or else an alternative book would be supplied.
Probably Face, maybe Flight.
Yeah, Face, maybe Flight. And of course, Sherman Alexie is a Spokane Indian who writes about life growing up, who. Yes.
Does Sherman Alexie personally call themselves an Indian?
Okay. Okay.
I don't know what the PC.
Sherman Alexie is a member of the Spokane tribe.
Okay, right. I don't want you getting like anyone taking offense to that, because
who writes about essentially his perspective growing up on a Native American reservation in Washington.
Fair cop, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Who writes about his experiences. I was, my mom wouldn't sign the permission slip because she didn't like the language being used in like the first 3 pages of the book, because he is, rather free with harsh language.
I'm going to send your mother a copy of James Baldwin, Go Tell It on the Mountain.
Yeah.
If she thinks the first 3 pages of any other book is bad, she should read that shit.
And
anyway, go on.
And so I got, assigned. I think I was the only one in the class who had to read the alternative book, which was Absolutely True Diary of a Part-Time Indian by Sherman Alexie. So I think he does.
Yeah. Fair enough. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not up on that side of
identity.
If that's how they identify, great. But in Britain, we are told that
that's
an offensive
my mom was
my.
I don't know if she did anything about it, but my mom was still upset about the content of the milder book, quote unquote.
Wait, whoa.
Yeah.
Calm your horses. Right. Your mother refused to sign a permission slip for you to read a book that I presume has some probably racist and blue language in it, right?
Yeah.
Directed and not glorified. Because I'm mentally comparing it to like James Baldwin, Go Tell It on the Mountain, in which on the first page the father talks about what white people think of black people in very hard terms.
Her specific complaint was profanity.
Jesus, if my mother had stopped me reading a book because there were a few F-bombs in it. Oh wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Okay. Sometimes, folks, someone like I'm married to Ree. We've been together 10 years.
Yeah.
And it occurs to me, right, that your mother wouldn't let you read when you were what, 15, 16?
Like 17, 18.
17, 18 wouldn't let you read a book with swearing in it. When I was 5, my favorite movie was The Blues Brothers. You just sometimes you realize you're coming from very different backgrounds.
Yeah. Wouldn't let me read it for, wouldn't let me be taught a course on it, essentially. Because it was a school curriculum thing.
Again, I am actively going to go find a copy of James Baldwin, Go Tell It on the Mountain, and send it to her.
Oh, no.
You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to send it to your younger sibling.
Oh, no.
That's what I'm going to do.
No. So.
Oh, wow.
Here.
Did you manage to study Shakespeare if your mum didn't like swearing?
Yeah. Oh, here's where here's where it really, really gets juicy.
Okay. Where did I put that bottle of gin? I know it was bad, but I might need it.
In October 2022, the library board voted to cut ties with the American Library Association.
Okay. And then it just gives a couple of sentences on what the ALA is. The ALA, right, folks?
Yeah.
I said right at the start, your librarian is very well qualified. Your librarian knows their shit, right? And the ALA is, we are all librarians. This is what we think is best.
Yeah.
Broadly, right? They're basically, think of them as like librarians union, but not. Almost, right? It's difficult to categorize them. They're very much like, the APA, the AMA, for British people, the BMA.
Yeah.
They are an association of professionals. They're basically a glorified union.
Provides guidance on collection development policy, as well as professional ethics and standards. Amongst those standards is a firm opposition to book censorship in schools and libraries.
Okay, I need you to understand that the ALA being against censorship, yes, they should be. The ALA against censorship is like plumbers against leaks. It's implied.
Yeah, and in case you weren't in case there was any foggy bits about this channel's stance, the ALA is the organization that largely heads Banned Book Week, which
Yes.
I basically structure the entire month of September around.
So basically, the ALA is the ACLU, but for books, specifically
Yes.
for books. And yes, we support the ALA and the ACLU here.
Yeah.
And yeah, like can I think we actually talked about the ALA statement that they're quoting here on a previous stream we've done. Can you just put Granny's comment up for me? Because there's an interesting point that's been made here while we're talking about censorship and everything else.
Yeah.
I grew up watching Monty Python. It's a British institution, right?
Yeah.
Four Candles, Four Yorkshiremen, Dead Parrot, the lot, right? Every sperm is sacred.
Always look on the bright
side. Which
of life.
was, yeah.
Yeah.
And I was horrified when I heard that, like, Ring had never seen Life of Brian when we first met.
Though, to be fair,
in your defense, it was banned in America. So, yeah.
Though, no, my point is, to be fair, I probably enjoyed Life of Brian as much as I did because of where I was in my life when I watched it, because I had the political background from my job training to where I caught a lot more jokes.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. The splitter joke makes way funnier if you understand like modern Middle Eastern politics, but also left-wing politics.
Yeah,
way funnier if you actually understand it. And all the different factions of the
Judean People's Front.
Yeah,
the People's Liberation Front of Judea, and
the Judean People's Front.
Yeah.
Like that makes way more sense if you understand left-wing politics, but also Middle Eastern politics, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, you probably enjoyed it more for waiting for it, but like for me, Monty Python's a film I come back to and I find different bits funny at different stages in my life.
Yeah.
Like when I was a kid, you speak up during the during the Sermon on the Mount.
Yeah.
A+, because I've been sat at the back of churches having to listen to quiet priests. A+. So it speaks to different stages of your life.
But anyways, back to the comment.
Yeah, the reason I'm bringing this up because there's a comment here, and forgive me if I'm going by your username, Granny. If you are AFAB, there's also it's bound up in girls have to be good, girls have to be innocent, which. Well, I mean, fuck that shit, because look at me. But there is, only the boys were allowed to watch. And that's another form of censorship. This idea of, keeping AFAB people, and I'm going to say AFAB people, but I mean girls. Like keeping us occupied with dollies and toy babies and not interested in engineering and mechanics and all the other stuff. But that is a form of censorship as well. And it's worth discussing that there are different kinds of censorship. The First Amendment protects you from government censorship in America. It doesn't protect you from private censorship. It doesn't protect you from suppression of information, intimidation, or anything else, which are all forms of censorship. Go read the ACLU's website. They've got a bazillion resources and they're fantastic.
Which is why we should really do a stream just covering Plugged In sometimes, because it's basically a censorship guide disguised as a review service.
Yeah.
A November. But anyways.
But yeah. Just thanks for saying that, Granite. Again, brilliant contribution as always. Wanted to point it out.
A November 2021 statement from the ALA specifically condemned censorship of books and resources that mirror the lives of those who are gay, queer, or transgender, or that tell the stories of persons who are Black, Indigenous, or persons of color, calling the efforts to remove books on these topics acts of censorship and intimidation.
Question. Are libraries government institutions in the US, or are they private?
I think it depends on the library, or they're like a weird mix of the two.
Because if your library is run by the local government, I can absolutely see an argument for we can't suppress this book because that is a First Amendment breach.
Yeah.
But if it's a private institution, well, you can go fucking whistle. Private institutions can say and do what they want.
Yeah, okay. Yay, godless granny who is a lawyer.
Thanks, Granny. So yeah, the government. So absolutely, if they're pulling books specifically to prevent them being read and to prevent the dissemination of that information,
most are run by a local county.
Yeah, and to silence the authors. I hear John Green's book Looking for Alaska keeps being challenged because there's an awkward sex scene in it that's designed to be awkward. I've heard him talk about this. Like he took on Johnson and Johnson and got the TB vaccine. Why is he not taking on these right wingers and like bringing a First Amendment claim against them? Like I would donate to that case.
Yeah,
I absolutely would. I would love to see John Green go up against the
Also, this quote: libraries manifest the promises of the First Amendment by making it available to the widest possible range of viewpoints, opinions, and ideas so that every person has the opportunity to freely read and consider information and ideas regardless of their content or the viewpoint of the author. This is from the statement.
I will come back to that in a moment. I apologize for that spit take. I just read Scummer's comment. Yeah. Which I dare you ring to read that with a straight face.
Okay.
Newsreader voice.
The Donald J. Trump Presidential Library just burned down. Sadly, both books were destroyed, and he hadn't even finished coloring in the second one.
Right, what I need is a full screen of you doing that so I can copy it as a short.
Okay, hold on.
No, we'll do that later. It's fine. Yeah. But yeah, no, that's brilliant, Scummer. I love it. You made me spit take live. Well done. Yeah, this statement, right? 1,000%. I agree with this. I have no argument with this. I would absolutely go out in the street waving a placard defending this statement. Yeah. Not everyone agrees. And like, and this is the like you see when it's a point of view HuffPost agrees with. There's very little discussion around it.
Yeah.
There doesn't need to be because it's implied that they agree. But when they were talking about how we had all those, like it gets more factual when the facts align with what HuffPost wants you to think as you read this.
Yeah.
Again, not an accident.
So okay, here it comes. Here it comes.
Yes.
Get your gin ready.
Right, folks.
According to Wyoming Public Media, after 2 years of chaotic library board meetings and input from the Liberty Council, a Florida-based right-wing organization, the library adopted a new collection development policy in June. The new policy...
The word chaotic is not necessary there.
Yeah.
And according to the Wyoming Public Media, I don't know about you, but that at the start of the sentence is almost HuffPost saying that's what they said. We're just reporting it.
Yeah.
Like we don't necessarily agree with what they're talking about. Or we don't want to get into trouble by saying this, so we're saying they said it.
The new policy no longer mentions the freedom to read or the Library Bill of Rights, ALA's anti-censorship policies, but it does have a new section on removing sexually explicit material in order to protect children.
Okay, scare quotes. But in this one instance, like normally, I come down hard on scare quotes, no matter who uses them, right? Because scare quotes, that's what they're for, like clues in the name. But I guarantee you that the scare quotes are sexually explicit were not put there by the HuffPost journalist. I guarantee you that whoever called for sexually explicit, like that will be the terminology used, because that's a very broad statement. Saying the word fuck.
So Mage Grey Wolf, and for anyone else who is late to the party, we're a Wyoming librarian for a public library. The head librarian of a Wyoming public library was fired for refusing to enact censorship.
That's the headline.
Yeah.
And we're reading into it. Now, obviously, like, I understand why they've mentioned Florida here.
Yeah.
Because it's Liberty Counsel, and Liberty Counsel are now in Wyoming spreading the message. Let's word it in that way, right? Let's use spreading the message. Let's be as vague as they are. Because sexually explicit is anything, right? If I wear a top that's too low cut, that could be sexually explicit. But that's probably not what they're talking about. And we all know what they're talking about, right? Because if mummy and daddy hold hands, that's not sexually explicit. But if daddy and daddy hold hands, cover your eyes, little children, that's bad and naughty.
Yeah.
Because for some reason, despite massive leaps and bounds in LGBT progress over the last decade, we're still more comfortable seeing two men holding guns than holding hands. I have opinions, and you all know I have opinions.
But anyways, get your gin ready.
All right, go on.
And Mage Grey Wolf, you got here right as things are about to get really juicy.
Oh, goody.
So do you prefer Mage or Wolf? I've only ever seen you in a chat.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Cool.
So,
all right.
So
I'm going to say Wolf because it sounds more badass.
I did warn Noodle about this quote coming up.
Right, I'm even gonna. Do you know what, you've warned me? So I'm even going to take the lid off the gin.
Yeah. The ALA is a self-proclaimed socialist Marxist activist group, and they've said this over and over. So this has absolutely nothing to do with targeting LGBTQ ideology or anyone's lifestyles, which is the ALA narrative. Library board member Charles Butler told Wyoming Public Media about the new standards.
I could have gone my entire life without hearing that sentence, and this is not enough alcohol to erase it.
This is about making the library more responsible for protecting children from sexually explicit material until they are mentally and developmentally mature enough to understand the ramifications and consequences of sex and different lifestyles, Butler said.
Okay, I never want to hear those words coming out of your mouth in that order again. First of all, otherwise I may reconsider marrying you, especially if you do it with a straight face. Now, as the parent, you fucked, you pissed them out. Your job to raise them and do this. This is not the library's job, this is your job. Point one. Yes, I'm aware that's a sexually explicit statement. Cover your little one's ears. You're a parent. That's your job.
I'm sorry, Granny, but to be fair, in the UK, it is like 2 in the afternoon, 3 in the afternoon.
It's 3:20, and I don't normally drink. Well, I actually do normally drink earlier in the day on a Sunday because I stream. But generally, right, if you drink before 5 o'clock on a Sunday, you're not an alcoholic. You're a pirate or a Catholic.
I mean,
from me.
I thought that was only if you were drinking rum, which makes you a pirate.
I got rum.
I have rum in the kitchen.
Yeah.
I have a lot of alcohol in this flat. I don't know how I'm going to go through it all. I might just throw a party before I leave.
I got rum just out of arm's reach here, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I know. I've got at least 2 bottles of rum in the kitchen because I've got a bottle of Malibu and a bottle of Captain Morgan's.
Yeah.
But
I warned you.
Okay.
I warned you about this quote.
Okay, right. A self-proclaimed socialist Marxist, right? Does the ALA call itself socialist or Marxist? Because this quote is implying that the ALA calls itself socialist Marxist activist. I'm pretty sure it doesn't.
No.
I'm pretty sure it only calls itself one of those things. And only at certain times of year, right? Socialist, like, look, America, I understand you had like 2 decades of McCarthy, and then you had Reagan and all that bullshit, right? I need Americans to understand that socialism is not a dirty word. When it's combined with National Socialism and populism, it's dirty. But on its own, it's not dirty. Because context matters, folks. And socialism and Marxism, they might as well have just said these you know. Yeah, exactly. But like calling something a socialist Marxist thing, it's like saying it's a conservative liberal thing. It's like those things. I mean, they can go together, but they don't. Like, do you understand what either of those words mean? This is why we need libraries, so you can look up shit like this. As a lefty who is fully aware that the left wing has many, many, many factions, I promise you that the only people you are winding up by calling anything socialist Marxists, like, if you want to pick a fight with the socialists and the Marxists, say that.
Yes.
And they will turn that. Do you know how you defeat socialist Marxism? You call something socialist Marxist, because then the socialists and the Marxists will turn on each other and destroy them both. Like, no, stop it, please.
So I love how in one quote, Butler's like, "Oh, we're not targeting LGBTQ people," but then
immediately, yes.
Yeah. And then next quote. Now I can't say that it's, immediately after, because I have no idea where, presumably it's from an interview, and I have no idea where in the interview, these quotes were pulled from.
Yeah, I'm trying to find out where they're getting this from right now.
I think it'll be from an ALA thing. But like, I need the ALA, like, the point of libraries, okay? And if you follow me on Blue Sky, because I'm on Blue Sky now, folks, hi. I said this, was it a couple of days ago when I put that tweet out about books are supposed to fuck with you? Like, the point of books, the literal point of literature, especially fiction, is to fuck with you, right? Because if it's not fucking with you, then it's non-fiction.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, I see where they're getting the Marxist thing from. It's from a deleted tweet from the president-elect of ALA. He's saying, "I just can't believe that a Marxist lesbian who believes that collective power is possible to build and can be wielded for a better world is the president-elect of ALA Library."
Oh, yes, I remember that. The Marxist lesbian.
That's where they're getting it from. So
yeah, okay.
And she regrets you tweeting it.
That's a very, very, very carefully chosen line. Blown up out of all proportion by someone who clearly had sour grapes about not being elected, right?
Yeah.
So, and actually, yes, collective action is how we do things. It's how humans have done things for several 100,000 years, and it's how we will continue to do things, because that's how you get shit done.
I shared the I shared the article the HuffPost is taking the quotes from in the chat.
Right.
Once again, from Wyoming Public Media.
Yeah. So they're saying that. Notice how they're saying what the ALA's narrative is. They're not actually letting the ALA make that statement themselves.
Yeah.
And this is a thing that you see all the time. Like, it's a gaslighting technique. Like, you tell someone what they are saying and repeat it often enough, and people start to believe it.
Yeah.
You know, if I say that it's Sunday today, if someone comes along on Wednesday and goes, she said it's Sunday, she's a fucking liar, because it's she today, folks. Well, it was true on fucking Sunday when I said
it.
But right, this bottom paragraph, I really want to dig into this line. This is about making the library more responsible for protecting children from sexually explicit material. Okay. The library is not your fucking nanny. Like, I'm not being funny. 10 years ago, right, weren't right-wingers bitching about the nanny state and how the government was trying to control everyone?
Well, like, see, there's a difference, because the government can't tell me whether or not I can, whether or not I choose to take a jab of dubious chemicals into myself, but they can definitely tell me that them books is bad for kids.
It's only because you're too stupid. Like, that accent, wow. Don't ever do that again. Like, my genitals just made the Windows shutdown noise, folks. But yeah, like, okay, they are literally asking for what we in the, I don't know if the term comes across in Britain, there's this concept of the nanny state, right?
Yeah.
The nanny as in the person who looks after young children. Like Nanny McPhee. Like, actually, no, I would vote for Nanny McPhee. She was pretty awesome. But
she was.
You know,
and I would also vote for Mary Poppins.
Yeah, Mary Poppins. Like, I would actively pay to see Mary Poppins and Nanny McPhee team up to put Donald Trump on the naughty step.
There you go.
Like, it's gonna happen, but like, he's gonna be on that naughty step a long time, because 4 indictments. Like, prison is basically just the adult naughty step. Like, yeah, it's not in America. In America, it's legalized slavery, but like, that's a totally different discussion. But what they are literally asking for is a nanny state. They are asking for the government to raise their children for them. Now, to those people, and I direct this specifically to Americans, if you want the government to raise your children, what I need you to do is go find a Japanese person who's any older than 50. Or a Native American person who has any family history that they're aware of that's theirs at all.
Go ask George Takei.
Yeah, go ask George Takei what he thinks of that.
Yeah.
Just like so far as I understand it, there are certain times of year where the Native Americans open their doors and invite people in to like meet them and things. Go and ask them, do you want the government raising your children for you?
Yeah.
If you don't leave that Native American reserve like with your tail between your legs, you need to keep asking, because
also
you don't want the government raising your children. I don't care what side of the government you're on. I don't want the government raising children.
Also, to put emphasis on the second half of the quote, that's probably
I'm getting
okay.
But the point I'm making, look, in Britain we have something called a national curriculum, which means that the government requires that every child who goes to a British school has to learn certain things. It's required that the exams are nationally set and everything else. Do you know what that results in? That results in a country that doesn't know that it's been fucked over when the Queen dies and doesn't know it's been subjected to propaganda. That results in me, a graduate historian who learned about British colonial atrocities after the Queen died from Twitter, because I wasn't taught it in school. That's what that, like, to an extent, it works. Yes, I would. Yeah, Caesar Milan when it. Yeah, to an extent, it works because it gives everyone a basic level of education. But you are a fool if you think that any national curriculum is not, in part, designed to indoctrinate children. I refer you to Margaret Thatcher in Section 28. Yes, Scummy, you can have a drink. I mentioned her.
Yeah, and also, To be fair to the Huffington, a minor retraction from an earlier comment. In the source that the Huffington Post pulled these quotes from, they are written back to back.
Yeah.
Okay.
Fair cop, right?
Yeah. But okay, I suppose it'd be okay if it's like label this as sexually explicit, yada yada, and just leave it up there. So people get a heads up. That might be okay, but I'm guessing that's not probably what they mean.
So, Wolf, I have a question for you. I see what you're getting at. I have a question for you, and I'm not trying to have a dig. I'm just trying to dig into the comment because it's a really interesting comment you've made there. Who gets to decide what's sexually explicit?
That's a good question.
Especially since the legal definition of sexually explicit is I know it when I see it.
Yeah. Hays Code. Section 28.
Also, as someone who spent 6 years in a private Christian school, I cannot agree with this comment more.
18 years of Catholic education, folks. Education. Yeah, there's a reason I'm so loud about this shit. It's because I've lived it.
Well, if you have the thing talking about how to give a blowjob, that might be...
that is a topic to pin for our spin-off stream later.
Yes, definitely. Now, you said something there about what were you saying there, Wolf? I didn't quite catch it.
I was saying something is very overt, like how to give oral sex or something that might fall into that category.
Okay, but
and then and the second part of this. You kind of have to teach this stuff to kids for them to get to the point where they can understand the ramifications and all that. I mean, that's kind of part of that journey.
Don't get me wrong, right? I completely appreciate what you're saying, that you don't want kids taught how to do oral sex and shit.
Yeah.
But
no, I'm not saying that's exactly what I'm saying. I'm not saying they shouldn't.
They shouldn't be taught, but it should be taught when they're old enough to understand it.
No, that's not even what I'm saying. I'm just saying, if that's in there, if they wanted to say, okay, we're going to say this is in this book, just put a little disclaimer at the bottom underneath the book. They'll say this is
sexually explicit content. Yeah.
Okay,
but again, who decides what that is, right? Because what's sexually explicit to me is not sexually explicit to you, and vice versa, I'm sure. But also, to this day, and again, personal anecdote time, folks, I went to Catholic schools. I've never seen a condom put on a banana. My public school friends did. I haven't. If you handed me a condom and something to put it on now, I'd know how to open it. And then I'd probably blow it up and use it as a water balloon, because that's the only thing I'm capable of doing. I can tie a knot with I don't have that knowledge. So if I'd have been 15 and 16 and going to the library and seen a book that said, no, this is how you do this, possibly with descriptions, or maybe with, photographs of someone putting it on a banana or something similar.
Yeah, or a carrot.
That would have been very educational for me. It would have been useful for me to know. Because when I went to Catholic schools, we weren't given sex education. We had abstinence only. So believe me, I understand when Americans say they had abstinence only. But been there, done that. I went to a school, and they were an all-girls school. There were about 150 girls in my year. 160 at a push, right? When I tell you that by the time we left compulsory education, which was the end of your GCSEs when I was younger, 16 or thereabouts, that school year where you turn 16. When I tell you that more than a dozen girls dropped out before the end of that year, some even in the year before, because they were pregnant, because they hadn't been given the education they needed. And there was an all-boys school up the road where, they used to knock off classes and go meet the boys. And of course they're going to get pregnant.
I thinking about your question, and I suppose the answer to that would be the community in which the library is sitting in, and possibly a board or whoever would be responsible for organizing these books in the first place might be where it would come into play.
Yeah.
So it would depend on be a situational, regional
again,
kind of
taking
thing.
that, what if the community is very insular and right-wing and religious, and you've got a queer kid in that community? What if the board says anything about black people is explicit and we don't want our kids reading it? Those are real-life examples of Mormons and any given religious community you like.
Again, I'm not saying we should remove these books. I would say that's what I said. I said just putting like a disclaimer under anything. I'm saying, okay, that's
no, and I am.
It wouldn't be removed, so they would still have access to the stuff. And honestly, if I was as a 16-year-old, I came across a shelf that said sexually explicit material, I'd be like all over that thing. So.
Exactly right. We all would. We all would have done it. If you weren't, you were a liar. Yeah. You're a liar, because we were all curious. We all wanted to learn. But this is why. I'm glad you brought that up, because the idea of boards making decisions. I really, really, really don't want to Goodwin's Law this, but it's relevant, so I'm going to do it.
I mean, we are literally covering an article about a board making a decision.
Yeah.
I'm not going to Goodwin's Law this, but it was a board that made the decision to attack the Institute for the Study of Sexualities in Germany in the 30s and burn their records and their information. So,
I'm very against
just putting that out there.
Yeah, I'm very against censorship where you can't access material. That is a definite no on for me.
Yeah, absolutely, and I agree with it. And I'm not having a go at you. I'm just using this as a jumping off point for the discussion. But this is why I find the organizations that are to do. This is why the ALA has the position they have. This is why the Organization for Transformative Works, who are online and archive fan fiction, have the position they have, because they understand that as a board, if they don't take a staunchly anti-censorship viewpoint, one decision becomes another decision, and it is one of those few times, one of those few examples of when you talk about it's a slippery slope, and it will have a domino effect where that's not scaremongering. That's how that goes, right? You start out banning the things that everyone knows is offensive, right? You ban Mein Kampf, and you ban that fucking American movie that was shown in the White House by the KKK. Everyone, and you ban like that Disney movie that they've locked up in the vault and they're never going to show again because it's racist. And then you ban, and then 5 years down the line, a different government comes in with different ideas and they ban everything they know is offensive. So you ban all that queer stuff and all that women's lib stuff. And then before you know it, everything's been banned. Yeah. And I'm very much of the opinion when it comes to censorship, I would not want anything censored, purely for the reason that I know that at any given point in my life or in history, there are going to be people who oppose my existence in positions of power where they are able to do. Like, don't ever try and claim for yourself the right to do something that you wouldn't want your worst enemy doing.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to censor things because I don't want the right to have the right to censor things.
Yeah.
Governments change all the time. We've seen that in the last 10 years. Things I would have been perfectly okay with Obama doing. Or taking that decision.
Or if
would I have been okay with Trump doing?
Or if they don't outright censor things, they will put enough pressure they will put enough pressure on the producers of a medium that the industry will feel that they need to censor themselves. Hello, Comics Code Authority. It's been a while since we've talked about you.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, it's been 3 seconds. Where have you been? But yeah, like this is the problem, right? And they want, look, okay. And again, I want to dig into this point. And you know how I said right at the start, I always ask why?
Yeah.
I want to dig into this comment here. until they are mentally mature enough to understand the ramifications and consequences of sex and different lifestyles.
Yeah.
Who decides when they're mentally mature enough? Is it the same people who've decided that me at 29 years old is not mentally mature enough to know I'll never want children and want to be sterilized?
Yeah.
Is it the same people who think that me at 29 years old shouldn't have the right to have an abortion? Is it the same people who think you at 30 odd years old don't have the right to explore your gender if you want to?
Also,
is it the same people who are calling for the voting age to be risen to 25?
Like, also, the consequences of different lifestyles feels like the least veiled threat ever.
Yeah, like, because the consequence, like, my lifestyle choice is to have an abortion. That had consequences. Yeah, it had the consequences, you know, if I'd had an abortion, which I haven't, but just as an example, that had the consequences of letting women go to university and get an education and not, or letting 12-year-old girls not have to marry their rapist uncles. Like, it cuts both ways, right? But
Yeah.
again, it's this terminology. And this is why, like, Mein Kampf's a horrendous book. But I will tell you, I read it at a very young age, and I would encourage anyone to read it. Because you cannot fight what you don't understand.
Yes.
And I mean, it's a bad book. It's a slog to get through because the guy was not a good writer. I'm sure he was better with a paintbrush than a pen, but he was not great.
Well, I mean, you do have to say that his best accomplishment was made with a single bullet.
Yeah, he blew his own brains out.
Say what you will about Hitler, but he was the guy who killed Hitler.
Yeah, like, but this is the thing, right? I read Mein Kampf now nearly 20 years ago. I don't remember a lot of it. Do you know the only thing I remember about Mein Kampf? When I'd finished reading it, I went to one of my teachers and I said to my teacher, "But miss, I don't understand. He was so stupid. Why did people fall for it?" That was my big take from the whole of that was my takeaway. At 8 years old when I read it. So, you know, like, I didn't understand how people fell for it.
All my struggle flashed before my eyes. It was very boring.
And you know, like, if that was my takeaway from Mein Kampf as an 8-year-old, that I could see the problem. Like, you can't argue against something. Like, I've told the story about a debate in class where we had to argue for and against the American system of slavery, and I won arguing for it because I actually understood the arguments, and the other person didn't and thought they could just win on, well, it's slavery, of course it's wrong.
Yeah,
it's not enough. And that's what censorship does as well. It makes it very, very different and very difficult. Like, I don't want Mein Kampf censoring. I don't want any of this, because you have to be able to read it. Because until you've read it, you do not have the capacity to tear it apart.
Yeah.
Like, and I don't, as a general rule, right? As a general rule, I do not listen to anyone who has an opinion on any book that they haven't read themselves. Don't care who you are. You haven't read that book page by page, cover to cover yourself. I don't give a shit what your opinion is. It's fucking worthless. And yes, I did read 50 Shades of Grey when it came out, and I have fucking opinions. But I read it because I knew I didn't have the right to have those opinions until I'd read it.
Yeah, that consequences of different lifestyles really kind of feels like wonderful life you got there. Be a shame if something were to happen to it.
I should point out that one of my parents passed away many, many years ago. Well, not many, but many years ago now. And the other parent is now a right-wing Fox News shill. But so, like, it doesn't mean they were great, but
yeah.
They weren't that far gone when I was a kid that I was, you know, limited. Well, I was actually. I just rebelled against it as a teenager because that's what teenagers do. Look, scratch a bleeding heart liberal left it, and you will find parents who are right-wing nut jobs.
Yes, but
as a general, like, generally.
Though on the whole, consequences of sex in different lifestyles, it's basically, especially coming from, someone who is right wing, those implied consequences are, blah, 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 higher STDs because, they're the people who get, who get tested. And then the whole suicide statistic, which wouldn't be there if you didn't make it so fucking hard to be LGBT.
Okay. So I have a question. Is it something you want to have an 8 or 9-year-old learning that queer teenagers kill themselves? Just as a general fact. Is that something you want an 8 or 9-year-old stumbling over in a book?
I
mean, I don't.
Yeah.
Hands up, I don't. I don't want them doing that. That's a fucking lot for an 8 or 9-year-old to handle. Right?
Yeah.
But what I do want is that 8 or 9-year-old to know some people are mean to people like me. And I know I'm like me because mummy and daddy, I'm not like mummy and daddy. Because then I want that 8 or 9-year-old at 14 and 15 to be able to walk into a library and say, I'm queer. My parents fucking hate everything I am. Help. I need information. Help. And the library is the first place, probably the only safe place the kid's going to be able to access until they're an adult. Because the library is the one place your parents are never going to think that you'd get information like that. But that information is there. Like, that's the point. Like, I was 12 and 13 at the library. I wasn't allowed to take them out. The librarian fucking knew I was reading lesbian erotica. She knew because she saw me. I'd walk into the library, say hello, and I'd make a beeline straight for the LGBT shelf. Like, I wouldn't even stop. Like, hi, there. And that librarian probably saved my life because that librarian walked over to me one day. I used to go to the library regular every week, public library, city centre. Parents would drop me off while mum did the shopping on a Saturday or whatever, and then pick me up at the end.
Yeah.
Or I'd get the bus home when I was ready, right? And she used to sit there and watch. And she walked over to me one day and she said, I see you come in every week, you read those books. And she was like, you're allowed to take them out, don't you? You can take them out if you want to. And I looked up at her and I said, I can't take them out. If my parents see me with books like this, I'll be in trouble. And do you know what she did? She reached up onto the shelf and she pulled down a book. And I still remember the cover of that book to this day. It was like a purplish colour. It had a knight. It looked like a fantasy novel, right? A knight with a castle and very stereotypical fantasy.
Yeah.
And in the tiniest thing on the bottom corner was a little badge with an L on it. Or with like the publishing house. Little badge, little yellow badge. Yeah. Right? And she said, you can take this one home and read it though. Your parents won't know what this is. And she was right. And you know what it was about? It was about a lesbian knight who rescues a princess and then rides off into the sunset with her. It was fucking awesome.
Yeah.
I went back the following week and I was like, I need more books like this, please. And she recommended 6. And I took all of them out and took them home and read them. And my parents didn't have a fucking clue what I was reading. Because you know what she also gave me? She gave me a book cover. You know how libraries have those plastic book covers that they put on books to protect the covers? The plastic things? Do you know they've got those not clear as well? Or some libraries have. Mine did. She gave me that. And she said, here. And I was like, what's this for? She was like...
Oh yeah,
you've got...
In school, we used to make covers like that.
Yeah, you used to cover your exercise books with them, right? She gave me it and she was like, here, take this. And I was like, what's this for? She was like, we know you've got a dog at home. Just cover your books for us. That's all she said. And I just looked and I was like, but... And she was like, you'll find use for it. You'll find books to cover with it. Just make sure you take the books out before you return them so you can keep the cover. That's all she said. She did not have to... but she basically set me up so I could read whatever the fuck I wanted and my parents didn't know. Yeah.
Horror of horrors.
She even, when my dad walked into the library the following week and said, why have the covers got like a black cover on them? Why have you got reading them with black covers on them because he thought they were all different books with the same kind of cover on them. She said, "Oh, your daughter's getting into history books," and I was reading a lot. Like, I took out an entire 3-volume set of the entire history of Poland one week and read it in a week. And I'm talking 3 volumes.
Yeah,
like that, like half. Like, these books were thicker than like Order of the Phoenix, to give you an idea. And I read all 3 in a week, amongst others.
Yeah.
And she was like, "Your daughter," and like, obviously my dad knew I read them and was very proud. His daughter taking an interest in her history. So when I walked in, I'm putting these books on, and he's like, why have you got reading books with black covers? It's like, they're to protect the books from UV light.
it's
I'm joking. I'm not joking. They have to protect the books from direct sunlight and light because they're delicate books, and she's reading books that we only have 1 copy of. That librarian saved my fucking life.
Yeah.
And so the thing is, right, there's also, going back to this statement now, I wanted to, until they are mentally developmentally mature enough to understand. How do you get mentally and emotionally mature enough to understand things?
You fucking learn about them?
Learning.
Yeah, how do you do that? You learn about them. How do you learn?
Well, the safest way would be through reading and other material instead of going out and doing it.
Okay, so another, less story time with Ring, but more quick blurb with Ring. When I met Noodle, now remember, I'm 3 years older than Noodle.
Yeah.
When I met when me and Noodle started like getting friendly with each other, I couldn't say the word sex. Like, I physically could not say it.
This in the same year that I was dating another girl, when we were still friends and we weren't actually together.
Yeah.
But yeah, we and don't get me wrong, I went through hell dating that girl, but because I had been, my parents, I was quite lucky in that my parents didn't grasp the what books could do to you and what books could teach you.
Yeah.
And also, like, my parents didn't know that I was into fan fiction, which, I mean, if you think you'll, like, I don't want to give them ideas, so I'm going to say this really quietly. But anything that they want to ban from your local library, you will find something probably better written and more explicit on a website called Archive of Our Own.
Okay, I'm just looking at some averages here on people on performing sexual acts and what age this usually starts at, and kind of calculating out this, and it comes out to about 16.8 as the average age for when people are doing these
for Americans, acts. Maybe.
I think
Americans, maybe.
Yeah, I think this might be for America.
And again, what's a sexual act? Is that a sexual act with a partner or solo? Because
this is with the partner.
Yeah, okay. Sexual act with a partner. Like I said, like I was 13 the first time someone dropped out of my school because she was pregnant.
But
she was in my year.
So I think we should continue.
Yeah.
So satisfied with the new policy, board members began asking Leslie to remove books they said were egregious and violated the new policy. Leslie wouldn't budge. Public libraries are for everyone, she said. Our collections should serve all citizens of the community.
Right fucking on.
Yeah. But board members were dead set on removing books. I think they should go through and find the egregious stuff. They know what it is. They put it there, said board member Sage Bear in response to Leslie's concerns at the regular board meeting in late July. So we're getting up to the actual firing. Statement.
If anyone ever says to you, you know what you did, you should fix it. And you know in your heart and soul of souls that you didn't do anything wrong. And I'm not talking about like people who abuse someone and then like that abused person says you know what you did, because you fucking know what you did. But if someone tells you that you've done something and you know what you did, and they are trying to control some aspect of your life, run. Cut them from your life entirely. Run. That is a classic narcissistic manipulation tactic that is designed to make you feel guilty and question yourself and self-censor and become eventually obedient to them and them alone, because they are the one who decides whether you know what you did or not. You don't decide that, they do.
Hi, Comics Code Authority.
Yeah, fucking run. Like, and the fact that someone feels like they can say that to a professional in a job
at a board meeting.
Where's that gin gone?
Leslie,
it's a classic manipulation tactic, and it's a classic. Like, you remember being a kid and your parents saying, "You know what you did."
Yeah.
Well, again, maybe sharing too much trauma here, but you know what you did, and you didn't fucking do anything. But you knew you were for it anyway.
Sorry. They know what it is, they put it there.
Yeah. Like, so what you're... There's an implication of that statement. I don't know what it is. I haven't read it. But I'm going to demand they remove something I haven't read.
Yeah.
What was I saying earlier about shut the fuck up if you don't know what you're talking about?
Yeah. Leslie was fired a few days later after refusing to resign. They've done their best to steamroll me, Leslie said about the library board. They've seen me more as a pawn in this bigger game. It feels like they have a political agenda.
Can I just, this woman, right?
Yeah.
She's fucking us, because she's being incredibly controlled given what they've done to her.
Yeah.
Because they've, like, destroyed her life, basically, right? They've destroyed her career. And this is a principle she's willing to go down on, and hats off to her. Like, a principle's not a principle unless you're willing to stand up for it. Yeah. And she stood up for it, and hats off to her for that. But I mean, I'm getting more animated and more annoyed and more, what's the word I'm looking for? Bitchy in my response to a lot of this than she is. And she's obviously, like, she clearly knows what she's doing, and she knows she's got to present a certain way.
Yeah.
But, like, she's like, intelligent, she's eloquent, she's articulate, and she's being presented as very calm. Now, clearly she's not. And, you know, even from reading some of her stuff, it's very much, she's the kind of calm that is going to explode at some point. Yeah. But she's reasonably calm. And
like, she also feels like, you know, the kind of librarian that might tell LGBT kids that the books are delicate and need special covers.
Yes. Absolutely. The books are delicate and need special covers. And if your controlling father asks why, we've also got books that have got covers that are written in Russian so we can't read them.
Yes.
The insides are in English. It was a misprint. We got the books cheap.
Large swaths of the community...
That may or may not be a true story.
Large swaths of the community were unhappy with Leslie's removal. I've worked here a long time, and it felt like it was a respected and well-funded institution, the anonymous staff librarian said. Sure, we're a red community in a red state, but a lot of people who have real roots here are angry that the library has been attacked. And obviously this is coming from someone who lived in a blue island in a red state, but the community really does like their community libraries.
Yeah. So
library is like a pillar of the community.
Yeah. And not so much where I am, because not a lot of people are educated enough to really value the library. But the library is very much... Like, my parents never questioned that I was safe if I said I'm going to the library. My parents, like, even before mobile phones, which just about tells you how old I am. You know, when I was 12 years old and not allowed my own mobile phone, for example, My parents knew if I said I was going to the library, they could always just ring the library landline. They knew I was safe there.
Yeah.
My library, on the other hand, if I happen to book a library computer for 3 hours and spend all of it on fanfiction.net, because Archive of Our Own didn't exist yet, well, what I used the library computers for was between me, the person who cleared the cookies on the library computers, and the librarian who got what I presume was a summary of my computer usage and never said a fucking word. Because I couldn't read fanfiction at home because parents. If my parents thought I was going and reading physics textbooks, well, it was for their glory. They can think what they want.
Yeah.
But again, this is why I am so staunchly in support of library. I would be a very different person without my library. And without the librarians who really took. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do for someone is nothing. Right?
Yeah, I mean, something that kind of bugs me is the library in by my area got shut down. They came up with some BS excuse of mold in the walls, which as a health violation, which had been there since the beginning, and it was in a way that it could not affect anybody, and they used that as an excuse to shut down the library.
Yeah, my local library went from being 8 floors of brutalist architecture to a tiny little place in the city centre, 1 room. After they claimed they'd found asbestos in the building. Like, you found asbestos in the you don't have the plans from when the building was built and the asbestos was put there. You found asbestos there. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, similar situation. Yeah.
So Leslie's firing is a harbinger of what could come next, as versions of her story are replicated around the country. The uproar about books in Gillette is a familiar refrain, so here we're getting back into the spin.
Yeah.
Monk conservatives who made anti-LGBTQ rhetoric a core part of their ideology. It is the current hot topic wedge issue in the culture war. Following increased restrictions on schools and curriculum requirements, conservatives increasingly set their sights on books, smearing any of them that deal with LGBTQ topics as sexually explicit or harmful to teenagers and kids. In Florida, Georgia, Missouri, and more, both public and school libraries have come under increasing attack by those on the right.
Yeah. And then just quote that, backs that statement up. Library director terminated. She felt uncomfortable removing books. Okay. She felt uncomfortable removing books from the library.
Yeah.
If someone walked up to me in the street when I was out with my Jewish friend and put a gun to my head and said, turn on them, I'd feel pretty fucking uncomfortable doing that, but I'd still argue against it. That's a very, it doesn't feel uncomfortable. She holds a deep philosophical, political, I can't even get the words out. That statement makes me so angry because it minimizes what this woman is going through and what she believes.
To be fair, this is this is a teacher who is speaking not
on her behalf. I'm aware of that, which is why it makes me so angry. Because
so her name's
people tone themselves down for the press.
Yeah.
And sometimes, there's a reason I don't tone myself down anyways. Like, who I am now, folks, aside from the fact that I'm toning my accent down a bit so you can understand what the fuck I'm saying, and I'm a little bit more animated than usual in, everyday life because it plays better on screen. I am broadly this person. This is who I am, take it or leave it. And if a journalist walks up to me and says something, I speak to them the same way I speak on this stream. But again, the fact that even her allies are saying she just felt uncomfortable. No, I feel uncomfortable when the tag in the back of my shirt is itching my neck.
Yeah.
I don't feel uncomfortable when I hold a principle that is staunchly anti-fascist and I am forced to destroy my life because I'm defending it. Those are 2 very different levels of discomfort.
My point is that she's not speaking anonymously. If she were speaking anonymously, it'd probably be stronger.
But again, this is why I'm staunchly anti-censorship. And hats off to that woman for not speaking anonymously. She shouldn't have had to.
Yeah.
This is why America has a First Amendment. So you've got the right to stand up and say what the fuck you think and not censor yourselves. But she's doing it automatically. She's censoring what she really thinks and the opinion that she really thinks.
And let's just kind of flip the script just for a moment, just to give you an idea. Let's say we had somebody who's very religious, and they're being told you have to remove those religious books.
Oh, we've seen that before happen. They were told they were allowed to. Remember?
Yeah. How would you feel? If the reverse was
personally,
the case.
If I walked into a library, and the librarian was let's spin the wheel and land on Muslim, because why the fuck not? Yeah, and the librarian was Muslim, because I live in a city with a lot of Muslims, and there was a section of the library that had all Muslim texts, Orthodox, liberal, and everything in between on the spectrum of what Muslim is and how people follow Islam, right? You can say that about Christianity as well, like Quaker texts alongside a Catholic King James Bible, whatever, right? And someone walked into that library and said, you have to take that down because you're scaring people. People think that's terrorist propaganda, or people think this, that, and the other about it. I would be the first person standing up and telling them to get the fuck out of there and leave, because they don't have to read those books, and those books are not for them. Those books are for the people who want to read them. I would absolutely be the first person defending the library's right to carry those books.
Exactly.
Though
I don't care what book it is. As long as it's not actively harmful to someone. Although to an extent, if someone told the library to take Mein Kampf off the shelf, I'd kick off about that as well.
Yeah.
So maybe that's not. But as long as it wasn't something like, a photographic book of underage children or some shit, which I'm sure probably
something explicitly illegal with illegal content.
But like, even to an extent, like, if a library in a country that had banned it had a DVD copy of The Life of Brian.
Yeah.
It's explicitly illegal.
like for instance, the Anarchist Cookbook.
Like, I am staunchly anti-censorship, but all staunchly anti-censorship means is that I draw my line differently to where other people draw it. Because everyone has lines, right?
Yeah.
Like, I don't like the idea of media that glorifies guns. I don't like the idea of media that promotes the harm of children. I don't like the idea of propaganda, but that's because that's where my line is. But there's a difference between I don't like the idea of that media, and I think that media should all be destroyed and we never talk about it again.
Yeah, it comes down to
the difference.
Yeah, it comes down to the old quote. I might not agree with what you have to say, but I'll defend to the death your right to say it.
Yeah, exactly.
Or on the Christian example, how dare they keep the heresies of papists and Quakers amongst good Christian material?
Yeah, but this is the thing, right? Do you know what? If I was starting a library, I want Mein Kampf in there. I want ancient Roman sexuality. Yeah. I want the Hannibal Lecter cookbook, because there's actually some good recipes in there if you don't use human meat. It's a fandom book that someone made and it's got real recipes in it. It's not an actual Hannibal Lecter cookbook, folks. I'd want Shakespeare. I'd want Edgar Allan Poe. I'd want the Iliad and the Odyssey. I'd want John Green's books in that. I'd want Hank Green's books in that. I want, all these things.
In somewhat related news, apparently,
I tell you what book.
Apparently Shakespeare is too sexually explicit for Florida schools.
I'm in Florida, so I'm like right in the middle of this crap.
Yeah.
Oh my god, yeah. But this is the thing, right? There's so much. The thing, right? When you look at Shakespeare and the fact that Shakespeare writes in cross-dressing, that's because those were tropes, comedy tropes of the time.
Well, also given the dramatic conventions of the day, you could also argue that they're meta jokes.
I tell you what, I can prove with one statement the fact that none of these people give a shit about things being sexually explicit.
Okay.
I can prove with one statement. I have never ever seen any of these school boards or organizations who are challenging books challenge translations of Catullus. And I'm going to let that sink in because I just heard the laugh and then yes.
Yeah.
So this man who wrote about how he was going to bugger some guy and a sexually explicit poem about a sparrow that might be about a woman that might be like vaguely vor porn. I have the book. I'm going to bring it to America. Good luck. I can't wait to explain that going through customs.
Yeah.
But they haven't read it. They don't know it exists. So they're not challenging it. Yeah. But it's you can literally go read those poems on Wikipedia. And they are very sexually explicit. Yeah. And like, if you read different translations from different time periods, it's translated differently as people tried to deal, like, because 1800s translators are not going to be talking about sodomy. And you know.
Yeah, and Sorensen.
And his gay young lover. Yeah. But they don't. And again, there's a reason I've just said that because I saw the word groomers on this page.
Yeah. They position the library and librarians as groomers who want to force woke agendas, Sorensen said.
Do you know where my anti-censorship line is? Every fucker who says the word groomers with a straight face and means it in that way that she's describing, right, should have their teeth knocked the fuck down their throat. If you're going to call me a nonce, have the decency, have the courage of your convictions to grow a fucking spine, look me in the face and call me a nonce. Otherwise, fuck right off with that shit. If you want to call me a paedophile, have the courage of your convictions. Back it the fuck up and watch me sue you for slander.
Yeah.
Right? Don't fucking pussyfoot around it. Say what you think. Because this is the thing, right? Again, and you said it, Wolf, you said, I may not like what you have to say, but I will kill and die for your right to say it. You have the right to say shit. So fucking say it and stand by it. And if you're not willing to stand by it, don't fucking say it. Say what you mean and mean what you say. It's not a difficult concept.
The treatment of the library.
That makes me so angry.
The treatment of the library and the firing of Leslie could have far-reaching repercussions and that could affect the library system for years to come. Public libraries, which provide free access to information, but also services like internet connection to underserved communities, have for several years been attacked as part of a broader effort to dismantle public institutions, included by privatizing and monetizing these kinds of public services.
Hence why I asked earlier, are they public or private institutions, etc.? Like, if something is not free at the point of access, it's censored to an extent. It's gatekept.
Yeah.
Paywalls are not ethical. I stand by this statement. Paywalls are not ethical. If you are putting information out in the world and you are limiting it to only those who can afford to pay for it, you are leaning into censorship, but you are also suppressing your own information, which tells me there's something you don't want the people who can't afford to pay for it to know that you think.
Yeah, that's what my biggest issue with all these. That's my biggest issue with all these news sites doing these paywalls nowadays.
Yeah. Though there is also we're stuck in a capitalist hellscape and we have to keep the doors open somehow.
Yeah, but I genuinely know people who write very sexually explicit stuff. And do you know, I know one person in particular, a brilliant writer, and she's had her fair share of people coming after her, right?
Yeah.
Because I'm going to say this, and then I'm just going to give you a moment to let it sink in. She wrote a Nazi concentration camp, German commandant, American soldier, Omegaverse story. And you know what? It's fucking fantastic. It's brilliant. She should publish it.
I actually consider a good mark of a good writer to be able to write things that they don't agree with from that perspective.
She made me, within 3 paragraphs of she made me sympathize with the Nazi commandant of a death camp.
I'd consider that mark of a good writer.
Story.
Yeah, I would consider that to be a mark of a good writer. She's a
fantastic writer. She's brilliant, right? Do you know where she has to exist online to be able to take donations? And I do donate to her regularly. She used to be on Patreon. Do you know where she has to be now? She has to be on OnlyFans.
Oh, jeez.
Because that's the only website where she can publish her work and be sure that they're not going to hold her money from people donating to her. I don't use OnlyFans. I downloaded it for her and I donate to her every month. I've got a standing thing.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of problems.
Just imagine that. I have OnlyFans. Why? Because I want to read Omegaverse stories. What kind of world we live in where that's a normal statement to make?
Yeah.
I have OnlyFans so I can read erotic fiction. Isn't that what libraries are for?
Now, the individual workers who keep the doors open have to account for the personal cost of investing their careers in these institutions. I think you're going to see people leaving librarianship as a career, the anonymous staff librarian said. They want to serve the public, but the amount of stress that this is putting on staff just can't be understated.
Okay, there's a few things I want to discuss about that.
Yeah.
The anonymous staff librarian. This person who was so afraid that they couldn't give their name to their opinion.
Yeah.
They might have held that, but they couldn't take that risk. And that's valid, right? Some people are willing to stand up and die for their things. Some people have got to keep putting food on the table. I get it. Not everyone is some people can go to protest, some people can't. Everyone has different levels of activism. And this person has done a very brave thing by making that statement, even if anonymously.
Yeah.
But the fact that they were forced to ask for an anonymity, the fact that there's a librarian do not feel safe to come out on the side of the statements made by basically what is their union, their professional association, for fear of, let's be clear, they're anonymous because they're afraid of reprisals, right? They're anonymous because they're scared they'll be on the chopping block next.
Yeah.
I mean,
if you, the director of the library who had been working for 27 years, 11 of them in that position, just gets fired. You kind of understand the nervousness.
If she's not safe, no one's safe.
Yeah.
So you can understand why they're scared, but they shouldn't be. I keep coming back to this. America has the First Amendment. There should be no reason. I'm not being funny. If people can go on Fox News and talk about how they want to murder trans people and how trans people are all fucking pedophiles, then I'm not being funny. She should be allowed to stand up and say, it's difficult to be a librarian when people are trying to destroy everything you stand for. That's not a radical statement to make.
Yeah, I can understand where I mean,
I
can understand why she felt the need to.
Yeah.
We're assuming it's a woman. It might not be, but I can understand why they felt the need to be anonymous. I'm just pissed off that they do.
Yeah, like me, I'm surrounded by right-wing Trumpians in my neighborhood. So me being a liberal progressive atheist, I can imagine what would happen if they found out I was that.
Yeah, it's one of those things, and I'm going to stand up and I'm going to go find the fucking book. Because, right, you didn't get much right, but Channel Punching Bag said something in a book.
Oh.
There's a line in a Channel Punching Bag book, but I need the book because I only know it kind of halfway. Sorry, my bookshelves are a mess right now. Where's the? I'm looking at 4 different copies of Goblet of Fire and none of Order of the Phoenix. Where are all my copies of Order of the Phoenix? Because I know I've got at least 3. I think copies, plural. I know I've got at least 3.
So if that wasn't enough to tell to tell new people who the channel punching bag is.
Yeah. Right, is it in Half-Blood Prince? It might even be in Half-Blood Prince, right? No, it's not, because Remus dies of the Phoenix. Wait, no, he doesn't. Does he die in... Oh, fuck it. It's been so long since I've read those books, I've forgotten. Anyway, there's a line in it, right, where Harry's talking to Remus. And I'm telling this from memory, so Google it. It'll be there somewhere. And Harry's talking to Remus and he's saying, people are whispering that the Dark Lord has taken over the Ministry. And Harry's like, so why don't they do something? Why don't they... And Remus says, no, you're not hearing. The point is that they whisper. They're afraid to stand up and speak the truth. The point is that they whisper. Censorship is about making you whisper because it's a lot easier to speak over and silence a whisper than it is a shout.
It's a self-censorship where you get into big problems.
Yeah, I think that is Order of the Phoenix because Order of the Phoenix is the one with Umbridge.
Yeah, it's all around Umbridge and everything else.
Yeah.
And I think the exact line is the point is that they whisper.
But
come on, Google, don't fail me now.
Final, like while you're looking that up, final paragraph. The actions of the board have affected me personally. They took away my means of supporting myself, and they took away my career of 27 years, Leslie said. But I think this is a case worth fighting for. I believe in what public libraries do and the services they provide to all people.
I think it might actually be Half-Blood Prince because Voldemort comes back at the end of Order of the Phoenix.
Yeah.
But yeah, either way, right? It's one of those lines that stays with me for a long time. Like I remember it so long. And look, even a broken clock's right twice a day.
Yeah.
And like in 7 books, she had plenty of opportunities to be right twice a day.
Oh, wrong banner. Wrong banner.
Yeah. But yeah, basically, the point is that they whisper. The point is that these people speak anonymously. The point is that the censors are winning. That people are now too afraid to stand up and speak the truth.
Ironic coming from that person.
Yeah, it's... The thing is as well, you can just imagine how in her own mind, the point is that they whisper is her defense for why she's such a fucking bigot now. The point is that we whisper because they hate us. No, the point is that you're a fucking bigot. Sit down and shut up.
Yeah.
But that's the thing. It cuts both ways. Like the point is that they whisper. Whether your point of view is right or wrong or whatever, left or right leaning, the point is that you whisper it. You don't feel safe to stand up and say it.
Yeah.
And for me, how do I word this? If you give me 2 people, okay, you give me a person who whispers about queer people, or only says it with a drink in them, or only says it in private, and you give me the person who was out on an EDL march last week yelling about black people and stop the boats and queer people and all the rest of it, and you ask me which one I want to sit down with in a pub and have a drink with, I'll take the loudmouth. Because at least he's got the courage of his convictions. At least he's willing to stand up and say it and take the risk, right? And like, as much as I hate everything the channel punching bag stands for, at least she's got the decency to stand up and say what she thinks.
Yeah.
Right? I don't like it, and I will oppose it staunchly. But at least she's got the fucking decency to say it.
Yeah.
Do you know? And it's very much... Like I said earlier, whatever your opinion is, I don't care what your opinion is, you're entitled to it. At least have the decency to have a spine and stand by it.
Yeah.
You know, and that's why, again, another reason I'm staunchly anti-censorship. My opinions, I'm very loud about my opinions, I'm very brash about my opinions, and I am very staunch in my opinions. And I'm sure if you put me in a room with hell, even a moderate Republican these days,
yeah,
they're going to be like, that person's a lot.
Yeah.
That person's a lot. But I would hope that any reasonable person, regardless of what my opinions are, right, and regardless of what theirs are, would look at me and say, yeah, but she's not actually doing anyone any harm. She's got her opinions, and that's fair enough. Fair cop. Good on her for speaking up about them.
Yeah.
And, you know, I know a lot of people who are racist, sexist, homophobic. I don't necessarily entirely cut them out of my life, because at least they've got the decency to be fucking honest about it.
And I think...
And I see, you know, you can't change the mind of someone who you don't know isn't on. And look, you've been a soldier, Rick. Yeah?
Yeah.
Would you rather that you're going out? Let's say you'd been infantry. I know you weren't, but let's say you are. You're going out on patrol. Do you want the guy next to you to be in it because he's in it, and he's here because he's a volunteer soldier and he wants to fight, and it's a just war and all the rest of it, and he believes in it, and you know you and he get on? Or do you want him to secretly be a spy for the other side? Because I know which one I don't want to turn my back on.
Yeah, and when we
I'm a civilian, but I presume that's,
yeah,
you know.
Yeah, and when we stop talking is when we start running into problems.
Yeah, like there's a reason you know, I adore when we're in these chats and I say something and the chat lights up and people start arguing with me.
Yeah,
and I can have that back and forth, because, and this is why I always clarify, I'm not having a dig at the person, I'm talking about the issue.
Yeah,
because I'm sure we have disagreements. As long as I can shake your hand and offer to buy you a drink at the end of it, and we can get on, and you don't want to kill me and I don't want to kill you, where's the harm? Right?
Yeah.
Look, you might not agree with me, but as long as your opinion is not that I should be put up against a wall and shot, like, we can probably find a compromise.
Yeah.
You know, you don't like gay marriage? Great, don't go have a gay marriage.
Yeah.
Yeah, being able to talk to each other, or even if even if it's in a disagreement, is how we change minds. It's by not talking to each other, or is how we end up in echo chamber, or is in just reinforcing possibly bad beliefs. Or I always like the quote from Daryl Davis: "Is keep in mind when two enemies are talking, they're not fighting, they're talking. I mean, they might be yelling and screaming, but at least they're talking."
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's when things go quiet, like. Do you think Putin, like, how did we know Putin was going to invade Ukraine? Because he stopped going to diplomatic meetings of the G7 and the G5.
Yeah. So
he knew something was going down. He stopped talking.
So it took us 2.5 hours to get through that article.
Yeah. Right. I want to show this article. I literally just want to show the headline to prove a point. Right. I've spent the last 2.5 hours talking about left-wing and how left-wing propaganda works.
Yeah.
I'm going to present this. And I'm going to ask you to just read the headline and the little bit underneath. No, just read the headline. In fact, what I'll do, I'll scroll up so you can only see the headline.
Yeah.
Yeah. Read that and tell me what you think the librarian said. If you knew nothing about this news and this just scrolled up your Twitter feed, what would you assume had been said?
Well,
No, go on. No, just, you are scrolling through Twitter. You're not paying it a lot of mind. You just see that headline as it flashes past. What do you assume this story is about?
Do I see
you don't know
with the included ad?
No.
Okay.
There's no ad there. It's just a tweet with that headline and a link to this article.
Probably the N-word.
Right. Do you know what the librarian said?
What?
And there's a reason that I've shown you that, because you've assumed that the librarian said something racist. Yeah?
Yeah.
Right. What the librarian said, her exact words were, she was arguing against a push to ban the color purple and called the people arguing for the ban backwards racially and said that they were espousing racist ideation. And that's the right-wing press telling you that that's all she said. That's what they managed to cherry pick, that she said that was so offensive. Imagine if you hadn't read the article and you just seen it as a tweet.
Yeah, and I mean,
or imagine if you were watching Fox News and they hadn't told you what she said. They just told you she said something racist.
Yeah.
Just remember, don't trust headlines.
Well, because the thing is, if we were including the ad, I would have thought it was something racist about Native Americans.
Yeah. You'd have thought the librarian said something racist. Not that she was arguing against people who were trying to ban the color purple.
Yeah. And, you know, something teach, you know, the school that, you know, started teaching both sides of the Holocaust ended up banning the Diary of Anne Frank.
Yeah. So this is a story from October last year, right?
Yeah.
They wanted to remove 2 books. Yeah. Made during a June meeting when a pair of books were considered for removal. And quote from a local resident, what she implied about me and others like me is that we're racists, which was inappropriate and offensive. She took a broad brush and painted everyone in Cody. The superintendent apologized.
Now, I wouldn't say they're racist. I would say, however, that they are being duped by racist rhetoric.
Yes, but what's the difference? Like, ends versus means here. Yeah. Like, are you racist if you believe aliens, you know, if you are not very well educated, you left school at 16, you watched a documentary, and now you believe aliens built the pyramids? Probably not. But you are still pushing a racist agenda if you share that information. And you defend that idea.
Like we're getting into a Durzo line territory here.
That's not even a Durzo line. That's just, it is what it is. Look, if you have the capacity to believe, and I say this as someone who, before I was a historian, fell for this shit, that, you know, aliens came down and that the Atlantans were a super race and that aliens helped build the pyramids. If you have the capacity to believe that, however tiny it might be, there is some part of you that is racist and you've got to deal with that shit. Because why don't you believe brown people are capable of doing the same things white people are?
Like, for instance...
Oh, so, and here's a classic. Yeah. How to... The books they were trying to ban were The Color Purple and How to Be an Anti-Racist. But that fact is hidden 5 paragraphs into the article.
Yeah.
Yeah, common.
Yeah.
In fact, I usually take the stance of usually when I'm reading an article to read from the bottom first. Because that's usually where they bury the stuff.
White person believes the book and critical race theory conflicts with the I Have a Dream speech. White person doesn't understand the I Have a Dream speech. Shocker.
Some more news has a video about that.
Yeah. Yeah, The Color Purple. You would have been embarrassed to read a book that discusses rape, incest, and profane language. You would have been embarrassed. Okay. Right, I'm going to say something. I don't care how embarrassed you are by The Color Purple. Do you know why?
The book is vulgar and well, okay, so here's the thing. This illustrates the tactic that book banners use, because they'll find something that, you know, they'll find a book that they disagree with on political reasons, but instead of saying I disagree with this because this has political reasons,
they'll claim it's vulgar and sexually explicit.
Yeah.
Which is why I asked Wolf earlier, like, who decides what sexually explicit and vulgar is? And we had that discussion and really productive. But, right,
I mean, I
need you to understand.
I will say I was an exception to the rule, because when I had my stint of hating the Handmaid's Tale, my declared reason for it was because they misrepresented the Bible, in my opinion.
That tells me you hadn't read the book.
No, I was reading the book.
Read the book.
I was reading the book. I was reading the book, but I was so fucking indoctrinated.
Yeah, that's what I mean. You weren't reading it properly.
Yeah.
You were reading the book looking for a reason to hate it. You weren't reading the book with an open mind. Now, I need people to understand that The Color Purple, right, is one of those. I read The Color Purple when I was about 11-ish. You'll know that when I talk about reading books, I read them way too young for what normal people would assume. It's just the way I was as a kid. Yeah. Like my parents, for some reason, they let me read The Color Purple, but didn't want me to read a story about two girls holding hands.
I wonder
why.
Fun fact: half of the reason why most of the reason why I ended up reading The Handmaid's Tale is because I had previously read every other book on the available list.
Yeah.
Like before I'd even reached high school, for the most part.
I'm going to say something about The Color Purple, and I'm not going to name any names, but this is a true story. I read The Color Purple, and I had a friend who I read it with. 2 weeks later, that friend was pulled out of class because she'd read that book, and then she'd gone to a teacher, and she said, "My uncle does to me what her dad does to her." Do you know what her dad does to her in The Color Purple? Rapes her repeatedly and violently. So don't tell me that book is not appropriate for children. Because if she hadn't read that book, she wouldn't have had anyone to tell. She wouldn't have had the words. And I've seen it in media. Like the stuff I see, like I was abused when I was younger sexually. Not by a parent, but I was abused sexually. And there are still things I come across in media that make me realize that certain behaviors or certain things that happened to me were part of that overall pattern of abuse and weren't normal. And I'm pushing 30. If I'd have had the color, like I had The Color Purple, The Color Purple like didn't work for me because I was being abused by a woman. So it like that they didn't, but it saved someone else. And I don't care how embarrassed you are by the book. I don't care how fucking embarrassed you are. And yes, I'm going to be vulgar when I say it. How many children, not knowing to take that book to a teacher and say, "My dad, my uncle, my cousin, my brother does this to me," is it worth to save you and your blushes?
Yeah.
Because that's what you've decided that your blushes are a worse thing than a child being sexually and violently sexually abused. That's what you've decided when you say you want to ban that book and ban children from reading it.
It kind of reminds me of.
But I feel that's part of a disingenuous tactic. I really feel that it is.
Yeah, no, I'm fully aware it's disingenuous, but if you're going to be disingenuous, you better be fucking prepared for me to come back at you with that and have an answer for it.
Yeah. Because
I read Danielle Steele's. Like there's a book called Malice by Danielle Steele, and in it the woman is violently raped by other women in prison. That book was given to me when I was way too young, and my mum didn't know what it was, and her sister gave it to me. That sister was sexually abusing me at the same time. It was part of a grooming tactic to normalize those things to me. Do you know what it did instead? It made me begin to realize that I didn't want to be around her. It made me start fighting back. Because I suddenly realized, shit, she's following me into the bathroom like those women do to that woman. She's doing this, she's doing that, she's doing the other. And those are these things. It didn't work in the way she wanted it to. because I was not groomed enough that I fell for it. But it made me realize for the first time that it's not normal for women to do that.
Yeah.
And she literally shot herself in the foot. Literally shot herself in the foot. And yet that book is definitely adult, and I wouldn't want a kid reading that book. Especially because I know that the reason I was given it was to groom me into normalizing that behavior. But I am also aware that I was one of those kids who looked at that and realized that this book is not glorifying those things. It's using them as a tactic to make the horror worse and to elevate the horror.
And that's an important distinction as well.
Yeah. Like, there's a difference between, and look, even fan fiction, that you will find, there's a archive warning on Archive of Our Own of non-con. We'll talk about they go for it all the time. Non-con, we should ban the non-con, it glorifies it. Okay, but it's tagged, it's warned. You click on a fic and it's non-con. You know what you're getting into. Deb Dove, do not eat, bitch. You know what you're getting into. The fact that the writer felt the need to warn you that this story has elements of that tag tells you that the writer knows that that is not a normal way to behave.
Yeah.
It's not even if the story seems to glorify, it's clearly not if it's been tagged and it's been warned that it's there. So, like, use your fucking brain. Instead of censoring it, how about you don't click on it, asshole? Because if I hadn't read that book, that if it had been a fanfiction, would have been read extreme non-con at 11, 12 years old when she gave me it. When she attacked me when I was 13, I would have stood there and taken it because I wouldn't have known that it was a violent attack that was happening. So, you know, there's nuance to all these discussions. But if you have a problem with your children being given access to texts that give them the words to understand violent experiences, to understand what crosses boundaries and everything else, why, fucker? Why don't you want your child having the words to talk to an authority and to know that they can go to someone and tell someone that they are being hurt like that? What the fuck don't you want them having the words to say?
This is basically the censorship version of states' rights to what?
Yes. States' rights to what, motherfucker? You don't want your child hearing what? Why? Why? Fucking why? Because I tell you, all the things that my parents stopped me reading growing up, aside from like a couple of like sexually explicit things that I picked up that even the librarian was like, you're a bit young for that, I'm going to ring your parents. Most of the things my parents didn't want me reading are things that would have given me the words at a much younger age to understand the situation I was in. Because I wasn't just sexually abused, there was like narcissism in the family and all kinds of shit going on, right? I did not have a good childhood. But I didn't have the fucking words because I was banned from reading certain things and interacting with certain media.
So,
and that's, again, this librarian, like, they've called her racist. They've destroyed her job, her career. Absolutely 1,000% I stand with her.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because this one, the fact that the superintendent felt the need to, this is a different librarian, I think.
Yeah.
But
yeah, it is because it's Cody, Wyoming, and not Gillette.
Yeah. This is just the reason I show this, right? Because I want to, if I can, will it let me? There's something about this image that I would like to point out. This image of the people at that meeting.
Yeah.
What do all those people have in common?
They're all over 50?
Yes. Carry on. What else do they all have in common?
They're all white. I mean, it's Wyoming. They're obviously they're all white. Like, if you live in Wyoming, you're either white or Native American.
Yeah. What else do they all have in common? Look at the way they're dressed. What about the way they're dressed? What does the way they're dressed make you think of them as a person? Except that one person in the corner who looks so fucking pissed off.
Yes.
Like, we're not talking about that person because I don't think that person's there with the rest of them. But what do all these other people have in common?
They're all dressed conservatively.
Yep.
I'm gonna have to jump out of here. I see Purple's starting her stream pretty soon here, so.
Okay.
Cool. Well, take care. Thanks for joining us, Wolf. Appreciate it.
See you later.
They are a very specific demographic. Do you know what they are? They are the exact demographic who should be made to read The Color Purple. That's what they are.
Yeah.
Like, they are the exact demographic who would read The Color Purple and take away from it that all black men are rapists. Don't cut that and make it, but that's what they would take from that. Because they're the kind of people who read the I Have a Dream speech and went, oh, that means we're allowed to be racist because we're not allowed to see race.
Yes.
Fuck you with a badge pole. And, like, none of those people are young enough. Like, if you've got a child in school and you're that age, fucking hell, I want to meet your doctor because they're a miracle worker.
Yeah.
Like, who the hell in that room has got a child under the age of 20?
Yeah.
Realistically.
Well, like, I mean, there is the, the occasion of, you're the biological grandparent, but you're the guardian.
Yeah, but all of them?
Yes.
The fuck's going on with the parents in that town? Do you see what I'm getting at? Like, these are people who...
I mean the lady in like the peach shirt like looks
about 19 and possibly queer, like looking at them.
Yeah,
I'm not even sure that's a lady. That might be a bloke.
And so uncomfortable to be there.
So fucking done. Like, so fucking done.
Yeah. Like they're like, someone dragged me here and I don't want to be here.
They're either someone dragged me here and I don't want to be here, or some fuckers talking and they're talking shit.
Yeah.
Like, that's what's going on that person's face.
Yeah, they are so done with this. Yeah.
And, like, that camera was positioned in such a way because they're like, oh, shit, we need a young person in the shot.
Yeah.
Like, that's what that was for, right?
And it was lavender, not purple.
That's fine. Cool, yeah. But this is the thing, and I wanted to show that because when you search for Gillette, Librarian, Censorship, this is the article that comes up.
Yeah.
Not the most recent one, this. And you were talking about, there was another thing you talked, what was it, the Liberty Alliance or something?
Yeah. Or Liberty Council.
Oh, libertyhumanrights.org. Is that it? No, that's not
no.
it.
Hold on.
Liberty Council, yeah, they spelled council wrong. They're not council as in group of people, they're council as in solicitor, lawyer. A Christian ministry that proclaims, advocates, supports, advances. Okay, we get it, you own a thesaurus.
Yeah, hold on. Here it is.
Yeah, I've got it here in front of me. So they are a religious group.
Yeah.
Like, the first 3 paragraphs of their About Us is all about religion.
It's spelled like that, but with an L, at least in the article.
I'm looking at the Liberty Council website here, unless it's a different Liberty Council, which it might be.
Could be a different, yeah. So it's
Liberty Advocacy Group, National Council for Civil Liberties, NCCL.
Is it? Yeah. Hold on. Oh, yay! Google.
Here we go. lc.org. Yes, no, it is the same website. It is the same website. And can I just That's their homepage.
We stand with Kim Davis. Wow.
Wow. These are the fuckers who think they get to decide what your children read in school, folks. I'm just going to let their... Yeah.
Yeah.
Anti-vaxxers.
Military heroes again. Oh. That's...
These are the people who don't want your kids reading The Color Purple and...
Yeah, you know, like, as someone who was in the military, you know what happens in the military when you're told that you need to get a shot?
You're told after you've been given the shot?
No, you get the fucking shot.
Like, okay, that right there is an anti-Semitic dog whistle that I...
Help kids and counselors. How much do you want to bet that that's conversion?
I'm not clicking on it. I already feel dirty just looking at this site.
RP.
Oh, we've lost Ring, so I'm going to hang around. Wow. US sovereignty to... I'm going back to that one because that one was... Hands US sovereignty to the World Health Organization. This is what I mean by censorship and propaganda, folks. They're two sides of the same coin. US sovereignty to do what? To do fucking what? Like, The battle is intense for our children. Parental rights are essential. Wow. Even their propaganda children are fucking Aryan. I'm going to have to completely, like... Yeah, I feel dirty. But again, it's important. Sometimes it is important to look at what the enemy is saying and what they're doing, right? Because when we hear about Liberty Council banning books, yeah, but if someone said to you, Liberty Council want to ban a book, you'd be like, okay, Liberty Council, they're a right-wing Christian. If someone then showed you this website and suddenly you're aware that they're anti-vax and, you know, they're fighting for quote-unquote religious freedom, the fact that the books that they are choosing to challenge becomes a much more... Like, suddenly, like, all those things I was saying about the HuffPost article seeming to be scaremongering. Are they scaremongering? Like, okay, I get I'm left-wing, my opinion aligns with the HuffPost, so even though I pointed out the extreme language they were using to help stir up the culture war and to get clicks, yes, all that still stands. But now you know who they're talking about. Would you write the article any different? And it's, well, I feel dirty just looking at this website. The Equality Act is designed to crush moral decency. Oh my God, and religious. Oh my. I'm just reading random bits from. Yes, Kim Davis is a gal. A gal. Ugh, ew. Like, we'll talk about propaganda and this because, again, they're trying to censor other people so that things that they're saying, like this stuff, can go unchallenged. Because that's what censorship's for, right? Is for stamping out opinions that you don't agree with. I don't want opinions that I don't agree with stamping out because some of my opinions are shit. Some of my opinions need stamping out. Some of them are not. Some of them are opinions I've got because other opinions were stamped out. And we live and learn. And what they are essentially saying is, no, we know the answer. We know the truth. This is all what's right and what's wrong. And this can never be changed. Religious indoctrination in a nutshell, folks. But, you know, they're anti-abortion. They're anti-vax. They're anti-equality. Like, they are blatantly anti-equality. I mean, look at this. We will not promote this life-threatening and soul-crushing actions and ideals of the Equality Act.
What's the problem with Q? In air quotes.
Yeah. And this, like, and again, I called out HuffPost for doing it. This is the same tactics, different target, right?
Yeah.
Like, they're not, it's, and there's the insinuation that, oh, the leftists are using these vague terms. Freedom to do what? Like, there's on their homepage, Ring, I don't know if you saw while you were off, there's literally a banner with the WHO logo and an injection saying that Biden has given away US sovereignty to the World Health Organization. Giving away sovereignty to do what? What sovereignty? Like, we had the same thing here with Brexit, right? Everyone's talking about, oh, UK sovereignty to do what? Yeah. Sovereignty to do what, fucker? Like, I voted for Brexit because I don't like the fact that the North was, like, abandoned and I wanted David Cameron to fucking go down in disgrace.
Yeah.
Very short-sighted, but, you know, I was in my early 20s. What the fuck do you want from me? We all make mistakes.
I mean, you were voting against the status quo in hope of a labor government.
I was voting. Like, my ideal was, let's get Brexit, then let's get Jeremy Corbyn, who will bring in a left-wing socialist government who will say to Europe, right, let's keep immigration as it stands. Let's have immigration in such a way where if people are going to emigrate from Europe, it's because there's a job waiting for them, right? Rather than them just showing up and then not being able to access welfare and benefits, because you can't access welfare and benefits if you immigrate to this country. It takes a couple of years, right? Like, let's make sure there's something here worth them coming. Like, let's invest in the North. Let's bring skilled labor back to the North rather than everyone being waitresses and call center staff and working in takeaways. Like that, I very much bought into the Jeremy Corbyn vision of what a Brexit could be. But then, of course, Jeremy Corbyn didn't get elected, and
because we live in the darkest timeline.
Yeah, because we live in the darkest timeline, right? That doesn't mean, like, I did what I thought was right at the time. I do not give a shit about immigration. This country would collapse after 3 months with no immigration. This country would fucking collapse. And I mean that in all seriousness. I give this country 3 months, if it's lucky, if they stopped all immigration to this country. Flat out, no questions asked. If they started deporting people who weren't born in this country and stopped all immigration, 3 months. If that.
Yeah.
Right? Sovereignty. Do you know what sovereignty means? That's not what that means. You keep using that word, and I do not think it means what you think it means. And that's what this website's doing. It's talking about making abortion a federal right, and punish anyone who will not allow it, especially Christians and religious institutions. Bitch. Look, if I go to, I'm moving to America in a few months to be with Ring. If I go to America and someone shoots me, be fully aware it's because some fucker said something to me and I opened my mouth and argued against them. That's exactly how, like, if I'm going to go down, that's exactly how I'm going to go.
Which wing of the government, or, you know, which color state made quote unquote abortion trafficking a crime again? And abortion trafficking is literally just driving a minor to a place where they can get an abortion if they need it.
I would like you put a trigger warning up, but I would like our audience to please read the line in quotes in the middle of the screen I'm sharing right now. Please read. I'm not reading it out, but please read that. These are the people who want to ban books. These are the people going around America trying to ban books.
Okay.
And this is what they're talking about.
Oh, so it's not a defense, or it's not an article in defense of QAnon. It's an article against queer. Okay.
Yes. Now, they're saying the quiet part out loud on their own website because they know that as leftists, we ain't going to their website. We're not. So they can say the quiet part out loud. Always find out the provenance of what you're reading. Always look into it. Because if I tell you, there's some parents who are a bit concerned that their kids are reading sexually explicit books, you're going to go, yeah, I wouldn't want those books in a primary school either, or an elementary school either. If I tell you that those parents are signed up and working on behalf of an organization that thinks queer includes pedophilia, and that the government and that the American government wants to make being a pedophile a protected class, how do you feel about them all over a sudden?
Or, the fact that, no, we're not talking about an elementary school library. We're talking about a public library.
Yeah. Like, always check out what people are saying where they think no one can hear them.
Yeah.
This is, what I've talked about. The point is that they whisper. If you know someone who goes about their daily life and in private is whispering shit like this, do you want to turn your back on that person?
Yeah.
Do you trust that person? When the fascists come knocking at your door, are you going to be able to knock on that person's door and trust that they'll save you?
But yeah, anyways, we've been going on for 3 hours.
Yeah.
So
but the reason
so we should probably wrap up and move to shilling.
Yeah.
Oh my.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm just going to leave that up there. These are the people who are going round and getting books banned, people. You still think they're harmless? You still think it's just a few books in a library?
And I'm not going
This
to
is in
touch
their own
that
words.
because I don't want to. I don't want to get in, because this isn't a map stream.
Yeah, but
like,
this is,
and maps are their own discussion.
Yeah, I have opinions. Very nuanced opinions, but opinions.
Also,
and I will shout them just as loudly as the blunt ones. But
also, though, I will say, rolling map into LGBT started as a 4chan psyop.
Yeah, and now the right wingers, yes, a 4chan psyop started by right wingers to demonize queer people.
Yeah.
That's what this is, folks. These same people who are demonizing queer people as pedophiles, because what's the worst thing you can be in society? A pedophile. What do most people quite rightly want to do when they hear that someone is a pedophile? String them the fuck up.
And I wonder, how many
tell
people,
someone all queer people are pedophiles, how many queers are going to get strung up?
How many people, pushing this propaganda, or, swallowing this propaganda hook, line, and sinker, also go on about how true to life and brave the sound of freedom was.
Q can also signify other sexual orientations. Yeah, but pedophilia is not a sexual orientation, folks.
Yeah.
Hasn't been a sexual orientation ever. It's a paraphilia. There's a difference.
Also, like this,
and it's also a crime. So
Also, something. Litter boxes for furries.
Yeah, basically, it's all the same. But this is the thing: like, these people genuinely believe this shit, and
And these are the people who are trying to tell you what you can and cannot read in your own public library.
Yeah. So, support your public library. Pay your fines if you've got any. Thank your librarian. And don't tell that teenager's dad that the book she's reading is not UV sensitive, please.
Yeah. So let's move on to shilling.
Cool. I still have my questionnaire up. If anyone's able to help with that,
the link is still in the doobly-doo.
Link in the doobly-doo. All the information's there. Just click the link. Ring described it really well last week, and I can't top that, so I'm not going to try. If you lost someone to COVID during the lockdowns, you're willing to talk about it, and you didn't have a massive mental health breakdown after the fact because of it, please let me know, because I want to know how you did that so I can help other people do that. So long and short of
it. For now, this is only for people in the UK. But if you don't fall under those qualifications, please share the link out so that someone who does fall under those qualifications might see it and respond.
Yeah, that works. Cool. I'm gonna who's shilling our upcoming project, Ring?
You, because I have plenty of other stuff to shill.
Okay.
And it is on your channel.
It is on my channel, so go find it. Use your noodle. I assume it's in the doobly-doo.
It is.
I didn't check the
not. It is not, because it's about a week out. So.
Okay, cool. So we have a new thing that we're trying. An ex-Catholic and an ex-Protestant sit down and have a chat. I just said we walk into a bar, but I am stupid enough I wouldn't duck. I'm not stupid, I'm just dyspraxic, but yeah. So we're going to sit down, we're going to compare notes on the religions we were raised in, right? And how it worked and different things. I'm sure at some point we'll get to an episode on transubstantiation, plenty on baptism, different stuff. We're running a pilot as and when it goes live. Hopefully next week.
There will definitely be a discussion on private schooling.
Yeah. Follow us on Blue Sky, X, or anywhere else that we are online to get information about that and when it goes live. We also do have a card. Let me have a look. We have a card or a small website, nfd.ju.mp. That's nfd. Kind of jump, but not. I'll drop it in the comments so you've got it. Have a look. It's a very basic website. It's just there for fun. But there's a submission box. So if there's anything you want to talk about, if there's anything in Christianity that you think, Catholics and Protestants do that differently, drop us a message, fill in the form, and we'll plan an episode around it and give you credit if we use it. Should work. The form emails me directly, so I've got it. And keep an eye on that website, because if there's any updates as and when we're going live, it'll hit there first.
Yeah. And so hopefully next week, we will be doing the link on going through Plugged In reviews and talking about how Plugged In is basically focused on the family's censorship guide disguised as a review service. On top of that, I have been planning a stream with Bree from Hive Science and Mage Grey Wolf about a bit of Twitter drama and nuttery that we got into. No official word on the time, but hopefully we're aiming for 2 Eastern on Friday, this coming Friday.
I will make time to watch that. That's going to be fun, folks. They met a vegan.
Yeah.
That's it. That's all I'm saying. They met a vegan. Yeah. Shenanigans ensued. Just shenanigans. Yeah. I want to see that. Even if I can't watch it live, I will watch it catch up. Atti's not here. Scummer has also started a new channel recently. History with Scummer. He was in the chat earlier. Scroll up, find it, follow the link follow him. You all know I'm a historian. I've worked with Scummer on stuff. Scummer's great because Scummer can give you the information that you need to come to your own conclusions. And I'm really looking forward to see what he does with it. So go give that a follow as well, and let's give him a boost. Because I know he's very excited about it, and I'm excited for it. So let's see.
Now, I will say that Lit Month may be delayed by a week.
Mm-hmm.
In that I am half considering not streaming on the 3rd, as I will be moving the day after, so I will probably be having to spend that day finishing up packing and deep cleaning.
Yeah. Cool. It's all go, folks. It's all go. But yeah, I think that's all the shilling.
Yep.
Has anyone else got anything to show that we've not mentioned? I don't think so. No, I think that's everything.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Again, I wasn't sponsored or anything else. Hannah Wotton that we mentioned, I don't even know her. Go follow her. She's fucking awesome. She will teach you how to use sex toys safely, cleanly, and you know, consensually. Ground News, again, great app. I found it through Legal Eagle, because he has like a deal with
Vice Rhino is also sponsored by them currently.
Vice Rhino as well. Go find someone they sponsor and sign up. Seriously, just do it. You will. It's by far the best app I've downloaded in the last 2 years.
And like
Blue Sky's coming up a close second.
Like if you can find someone, you know, someone you follow on YouTube who is currently being sponsored by them, do it through their link so you get a discount and support the channel that you like.
Yeah, definitely do that. And that way as well. Other than that,
and noted, we are not sponsored by either Legal Eagle or Vice Rhino.
Oh yeah, no, we are not sponsored by anyone. No one's gonna sponsor us with my mouth on this shit. Let's be clear here. Who the fuck is gonna like no one's brave enough to sponsor us.
Between my invisibility
and my mouth. Just imagine.
Yeah.
But yeah, like no one's gonna sponsor us, folks. If we share stuff, it's because we either believe in it ourselves or we know of it ourselves.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yes, I am fully aware that I spent a good portion of this stream looking for a Harry Potter book. Don't go buy new Harry Potter books. There's plenty in secondhand shops. Or you know, you can get them in other ways. I'm sure your local library has a copy if you're that desperate to read it. Yeah. Support your local library.
Or if you're, if you're worried that you won't be able to, get through it in time to return it and, don't want to accrue fines. I'm sure that there are ways to acquire it that involve rum.
There are many ways to acquire versions of the Harry Potter books that you, without spending a penny. Some of them more legal than others.
Yeah.
But also, most libraries let you extend a loan if you haven't finished reading yet, because they're awesome like that. Support your library. Yeah, it's everything.
Yeah, I think the only reason they wouldn't is if someone's already wanted to, already filled out a form that said, "Hey, I want it." Yeah. Yeah. So, anyways, that with all that, let's move to taglines.
As always, from me, take care, be good, and if you can't be good, use your noodle.
And since this is not Media Musings, remember, indoctrination is a hell of a drug.